Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 370. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Matt.
Hey, what's up?
Also, we're back because we weren't here last week. Which honestly, like, I felt bad that we missed a week last week, but it also occurred to me that is the first time we've ever had to like just suddenly cancel an episode. Like, yeah, I took 1 week off last year, but we knew about that in advance. We warned people for months, and there was like a placeholder episode. That is the first time in 370 episodes we've ever just had to cancel one suddenly because of life getting in the way. So, yeah.
Life finds a way, and life finds a way to make it difficult.
Yeah, so, yeah. Yes, and we're actually recording this episode late this week as well. It's still a knock-on effect of the same thing. So,
I'm trying to give a thumbs up, but I hurt my thumb playing football, so I can't. You know, I feel like Orange Cassidy here.
Yes, Matt's having a very stressful time. I was hearing all about it before we started.
Yep.
But yeah, so we can, you know, we'll get into the books. It's a DC Comics podcast. We talk about the books we read this week and indeed from last week. Although I read them all today, for the record. I didn't read anything last week once I knew we weren't recording. So coming up on this week's show, yep.
I was gonna say the worst part of last week was I didn't realize I was gonna be able to make the show until I'd already read Night Terror stuff. So that was the real kick in the pants. So I didn't make that mistake this week. I read all the stuff I wanted to first, just in case. So yes.
Yeah. So coming up on this week's show, we have Night Terrors issue 4. We've got Night Terrors Detective Comics issue 2. And Matt read Night Terrors Action Comics issue 2. And that was it, because when I was reading all these books, all those Night Terrors tie-ins issue 2s, all in Detective Comics, I said, you know what? I don't think I will. So the one upside to the skip week happening now is that it happened during Night Terrors. So I got to skip a few of those.
And I might have read Superman Night Terrors, but I don't remember. So, yeah.
Yeah, so after those Night Terrors books, we got Batman Superman World's Finest, issue 18. We have The Penguin, issue 1. We have Hawkgirl, issue 2. We've got Unstoppable Doom Patrol, issue 5. We got The Vigil, issue 4. And we have Dark Knights of Steel, issue 12. And right before we started, Matt looked me in the eye and said, it's not like we've got solicits this week. And then I said, we do have solicits, Matt. And the soul left his body before my eyes. So we do have solicits as well to look at. So we'll get into all that. So it's a nice meaty episode for everyone. But yes.
I'm so tired.
So yes, we started late today because Matt was having to move a bunch of stuff out of an apartment.
Not an apartment, a 4-bedroom house.
Sorry, a 4-bedroom house. So there was a lot of stuff there. Going by that. All right. So we'll get to everything then. But Matt, I've got something to cheer you up. It's okay.
No, it's not okay. Because I know what you're going to say. And it's not cake. It's not pie. It's just the ComiXology Top 10.
The nurturing embrace of the ComiXology Top 10 will guide you to comfort, Matt. That's what's about to happen.
Ay.
Don't worry, I'm not going to make you guess last week's as well. We're just going to look at this week's. So it's okay.
Thank God.
Right? Just don't worry.
That's the only bullet I dodged this week.
So yes, we're looking at this week's books. Honestly, the disadvantage you might have is you might have, like, because we're doing a bunch of books from this week and last week, you might not realize what this week's books are versus last week's. But would you care to guess what the number one book right now on ComiXology is from this week's Tuesday books?
I'm gonna guess because it's the event is Night Terrors.
It is not.
Wow. Is it Dark Knights of Steel?
It is.
Let's go, Tom Taylor.
Tom Taylor sells. And I would argue even lesser Tom Taylor sells versus some of the big stuff. Night Terrors 4 is the second book on the list. Number 3 is Batman Brave and the Bold. Number 4 is The Penguin, issue 1. So Tom King's name getting that quite... You know, it's a Penguin book. You know, that's good for a Penguin book.
It's a Penguin book. It's a pseudo-sequel to Killing Time.
Yeah, there's some connective tissue in there, which is interesting. Then we got Night Terror's Titans at number 5. Number 6 is Night Terror's Action Comics. Number 7 is Unstoppable Doom Patrol. Number 8 is Night Terror's Detective Comics. Number 9 is Batman Neo-Gothic. Or sorry, Batman Beyond Neo-Gothic, I should say. And number 10 is Night Terror's Harley Quinn. So we're almost done with Night Terrors. We got the finale issue next week.
Which I forgot about, so when I got through issue 4 and there wasn't a definitive conclusion, I got very upset.
You thought that was the ending.
And then I saw the to be. I was like, oh, God, of course.
The only reason why I knew is because a bunch of the number 2s of the tie-ins said to be concluded in Night Terror's Night's End or whatever it's called, and I went, okay, so that's coming after issue 4, I presume. So yeah, that was the DC books. Nothing too surprising. Penguin did all right, and Tom Taylor sells. Wednesday's books, looking at the Marvel and the rest of the industry. Care to guess what number 1 is?
Well, there's 2 new X books that are at number 1 that I can, but I'm gonna go with the event and think it's Realm of X number 1.
That is incorrect.
What? My cheat code didn't work.
It did not work. You should have stuck to your gut, because number 1 is Jean Grey issue 1.
Damn it.
Comic nerds love the redheads, Matt.
I know this. I didn't even see this book at my shop this week, so I would have picked it up. Yeah, as you know, I love redheads.
Especially Marvel fans. Between Jean Grey and Mary Jane, the Marvel fans love the redheads. Number 2 is Immortal Thor issue 1, which is an Al Ewing Thor book.
I didn't even know this was out either.
Yeah. Number 3 is Realm of X issue 1.
Okay.
Number 4 is X-Force 43. Number 5 is Invincible Iron Man issue 9. Number 6 is Big Game issue 2. That's a Mark Millar book, who sadly is one of the few indie people who seem to get onto the top 10 on a regular basis.
Still sells, yeah.
Yeah. Number 7 is Amazing Spider-Man. Number 8 is Captain America Finale. Interesting. Number 9 is Fantastic Four Annual, and then number 10 is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which it's just a regular issue, but it says Darkest Hour at the top, so they've got an event going on. They've got a big banner going across. So.
Yeah, so that Captain America Finale is the end of the Jackson Lanzing and Colin Kelly series.
Okay.
So that started in Sentinel of Liberty. So that's what that is.
It just sounds
weird that they just gave it. It's weird that they just essentially gave it like an annual size book to wrap everything up, and called it Finale.
I mean, I think that's normal, except from the name, because Finale just like I was like, wait, are they finishing Captain America for good here? What's happening?
Yeah, it sounds like a the end comic.
It does, yeah. So yeah, there you go. Marvel had a lot of books out, because even the next 10 books are mostly Marvel.
Which is so weird, because like I didn't see Jean Grey at my shop. And I got there at my normal time. I didn't see Immortal Thor. So maybe people just aren't buying those in physicals as much. And this is, they're thriving in digital.
I don't know. But there you go. That's the top 10 from Tuesday and Wednesday. See, the pen's over, Matt. It's all done.
Like a Band-Aid. Just rip it off.
It's all done. So what we do have, though, is we have the solicits to look at. And I hadn't looked at these, so... I did sort of skim a little bit, though, just in advance of recording, and they're doing that thing that I think they did last year, where these November solicits also include the first week of December, it seems, for whatever reason. I think it's because when they do the December solicits, they can include like the first 2 weeks of January, and then it starts to even back out again after that over time. So it's going to look like a couple of these are double shipping. They're not, although there's definitely an extra Detective Comics in there overall, but we'll talk about that as we get to it. So these are for November. So first up, I did not know this was a thing. This was a surprise when I opened the solicits up. Batman Offworld issue 1, which is by Jason Aaron and Doug Mankey.
Okay, this is the best news that I've gotten in like 2 weeks. Look, we all know how I feel about Batman. However, my love of Jason Aaron is, conversely related. And then you're going to give me Doug Mankey on art.
Is Jason Aaron done much DC work before?
Not too much DC itself, but he did a lot of Vertigo. So his first creator-owned book, Scalped, Let's Do Vertigo.
Okay, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, he did some American. You'll read one of his stories in the American Vampire one shot thing that you'll get to, like the anthology. He did one of those. But as far as superheroes, not too much. I think I have an issue of him that was like Arkham Asylum Penguin that he had done like early in his career. So, but yeah, let's go.
Yeah, very interesting to see if this is like the start of something. Like if this is him going to be dabbling in more DC work going forward or not. But yeah, so this is about Batman going to space, basically. Obviously, that's what the title makes it sound like. But yeah, he's going to the cosmos to fight a threat that he's never fought before, and that's the idea. So yeah, Jason Aaron's writing a Batman comic. That's kind of the big news here.
Yep, let's go.
So we got Titans Beast World issue 1. This is the event that Tom Taylor's doing, sort of tied into his Titan stuff. So yeah, Ivan Reis and Danny Miki on the art. So I mean, honestly, there's nothing to really be upset about here. You know, it's all the names you kind of want, and I'll take more Tom Taylor books in my life.
Yeah, I like that Beast Boy's taking center stage in it though, because it's really selling it as that it's Gar's story.
Sure.
And that everyone else is supporting him, which is nice because I feel like he's kind of not forgotten because he's been around, but he needs some spotlight right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think if you just called it Beast Boy World, it probably wouldn't do that well. I think tying it to Titans and making it clear that they're all there, but it is Beast Boy centric, is probably the way to go.
Yeah.
We have Outsiders issue 1. Now we actually heard about the announcement of this a couple of weeks ago. This is the Jackson Lansing, Colin Kelly book, art by Robert Carey. This is the new sort of just pair between Luke Fox and Batwoman. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, we talked about it a bit when it was announced. Here's something I didn't know was coming: is Speed Force issue 1, which is Jarrett Williams writing with Danielle Di Nicolo on. I said that weird, but anyway.
He did about as good as I would have.
Nicolo.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, so this is a Wally West and Avery comic.
Yeah.
I mean, your thoughts? This is another Flash book. That's kind of interesting.
I'm okay with that. You know, I don't know who this writer is, but I have seen. We'll say Daniele D. We'll just leave it there. That name sounds familiar. I feel like we've seen their art.
Oh
somewhere.
Yeah, I definitely.
It says Nightwing, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers here at the bottom. So
yeah, I definitely seen this artist's work before.
Yeah. So I'm not over on the social medias that much right now, but I did check something earlier this week, and I saw there was someone complaining about Flash people. They, out of anyone, Flash fans shouldn't be complaining about legacy characters, right? Because it's kind of the Flash. I'm wondering if this is what that was about. You know, kind of. Well, I mean, I just kept scrolling. You know,
if you're a Flash fan, you know we've got the main Flash book starting a new run. We've got that J book coming up, and we've got this now coming up. So there is kind of a bouquet of Flash books.
Yeah.
This sort of autumn, which is kind of cool. So
yeah.
So again, I have no expectations because I really don't know this writer at all. But
yeah,
we'll see how it shapes. So obviously, I hope it's good. But yeah. We got Batman Santa Claus Silent Night issue 1, and this is issue 1 of 4, bizarrely. I assumed this was a one-shot until I looked down. But this is Jeff Parker writing this with art by Michelle Bandini. So Jeff Parker makes this an instant want for me, because I've liked his work in the past. As a 4-part crossover event of a generation that begins when not-so-jolly Saint Nick hits Gotham City to investigate a brutal crime in the days leading up to Christmas. What manner of man or beast could have committed such atrocities? With the help of a former student, Batman, Santa will team up with the heroes of the DC Universe to right this wrong, or the world wakes up to coal in their stockings. A brutal, two-fisted holiday tale of hope, wonder, and monster hunting. So this is out on the first week of December. So I'm going to assume this is a weekly book that will just play out during December. But I'm not going to lie, I think this is a great idea for a little Christmas miniseries.
Just like they had me Santa in the DC universe, like, but a former student of Batman, or Batman's his former student. Like, that is so funny.
I feel like someone watched that David Harbour movie last year at DC and said, wait a minute,
right.
we can do this. We can have Santa teaming up with Batman. We can do this shit. That's what that sounds like to me. And then we got some tie-ins for the Titans Beast World event. We got Titans Beast World Tour Metropolis issue 1. And this is a 48-page book with stories by Nicole Maines, Joshua Willamson, Zippera Smith, and Dan Jurgens. And then we have Titans Beast World Waller Rising issue 1, which is a 48-page one-shot as well. And this is, well, actually, to be fair, it doesn't actually say one shot. I'm assuming these are one shots. They could very well be one of something.
The 48-page.
Yeah,
you know, that kind of is a good signifier.
So yeah, and the Waller Rising though doesn't have a team of writers. It's only Chuck Brown, so this doesn't seem to be an anthology like the other one is. And then obviously going along with that, you have Titans issue 5, which is the usual team of Tom Taylor and Nicholas Scott. And then there's also Teen Titans Beast World Evolution issue 1, which is a 64-page, presumably one shot, with stories by Marv Wolfman, Bob Haney, and Leah Williams. So they are putting some tie-ins out for this.
Well, so this is just a reprinting special.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it collects Teen Titans 5, Tales of the New Teen Titans 3, and that story from Leah Williams in Action Comics 1051. Each reveals a piece of Beast Boy's past. So it's basically that, they did this, I think, with Cyborg as well, where they gave us, before his series. So that's pretty cool, though. It's got a great cover by Brad Walker. Only that much.
Yeah, that is interesting. They're actually treating this with some like tie-in sort of status. Now, how good will the tie-ins be? I don't know. It's notable that Taylor's name is nowhere near any of these, so the quality might vary wildly, but at the very least, it should be a bunch of characters that I'm excited to read more of.
Yeah, the first one that had all the different, the Metropolis one, felt very Lazarus Planet-y. All those different ones that came out. The second one sounds like it has more of a point of view, because it seems like Waller's going up or teaming up or taking on the different, like the red, the green, the rot, and that type of stuff. So that one seems more pointed than the other one that just kind of seems like an excuse to put out a book. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's fair. So we got Batman 89 Echoes issue 1. This is written by Sam Hamm and art by Joe Quinones. So you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. After Harvey Dent's crusade against Gotham and Batman, the Cape Crusader has disappeared without a trace. In his place, ordinary citizens have taken to the streets to root out crime. As innocents get hurt, the question in everyone's mind is the same. Where is Batman? Sam Hamm, the screenwriter of the 1989 Batman movie, and Joe Quinones reunite for another tale in Gotham. So, new miniseries, presumably. Again, I feel like they're getting really bad at labeling these. If they're miniseries, if they're ongoings, they're not really telling us anymore. But this, I would assume this is a miniseries just based on what it is.
I didn't realize Sam Hamm was the screenwriter of Batman. And it just, with Sam Hamm, Batman, Gotham, it seems like this was, his job. It was meant to be.
Yeah. Well, if I remember correctly, I don't know if Joe Quinones did the comic book adaptation of the movie, but I remember there being a comic book adaptation that came with one of the Blu-rays from back in the day. Similar, we have Superman 78, The Metal Curtain issue 1 by Robert Venditti with art by Gavin Guidry. So, did Venditti do the last Superman 78 book? I think I thought he did.
I need to go and get that. I know it's out in trade now. I read the first issue and I really enjoyed it. And this seems like it's Robert Venditti doing Superman 4 because it involves the Soviet Union. Nothing about Nuclear Man, but
Nuclear Man.
Whatever you said.
You don't say it like a no. I mean, you said it right, but I'm saying you can't say it normal. You have to say it like Gene Hackman says. You have to say nuclear Man.
Yes.
Some nuclear weapons.
Yes.
And then issue 2 is also solicited for that because that's a week 1 book. So issue 2 is start of December, as you'd expect. We got Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong 2.
I forget this exists, and it makes me so happy.
The cover of this is Godzilla blasting his atomic breath, and Superman is just sort of like hanging out in his mouth, like next to the blast.
Like he's trying to dodge it, but also keep Godzilla's mouth open.
If I was to read this image, I would say that Superman is trying to keep his mouth open, and Superman did not know that Godzilla was then going to blast him with this as a countermeasure. So that's the what I think is going on. We got Detective Comics 1076, and that's how. So this is weird. So there's like 3 issues of Detective here. This one's actually a late solicit for October 31st. So the week 5 in October, and then there's 1077, which is scheduled for the 14th of November. And then there's 1078, which is scheduled for the 28th of November. So it does seem like Detective Comics, at least for 1 month in December, is double shipping. And possibly 2, because there might have been one already in October as well. Yeah,
so it says Batman Outlaw, the 5-part bi-weekly Detective Comics event starts here. Okay. And that's the one that comes out on Halloween.
They probably told us that, like last solicits.
Last time? Yep.
Yeah. No, this is part 3 of 5. We wouldn't have had part 1 yet. So no, this is new.
Okay.
Yeah, because this is literally parts 1, 2, and 3. So yeah, we wouldn't have known this from last solicits. Okay, well that's fun. It's still Ram V writing, so there's no reason to feel anything but just excitement.
And the name of the artist, Sean Alexander, sounds very familiar, but I don't know why. So yeah, if the art matches the covers, seems like it's gonna have a nice vibe to it.
Yeah. Yeah, then we got Batman 139, which does have a really nice cover actually as well. It's got like a Batman using a torch to look at a wall, but the green and yellow kind of lighting of the color scheme is very striking. So that's cool. Batman 140 solicited for the start of December. Cool, I guess. Zdarsky's doing a Joker story, so we'll see how he handles that. Obviously, we've been very mixed on his run thus far.
We won't see it, because we won't be reading it.
I think we'll see what it's like. I mean, maybe after the Catwoman crossover thing, we'll dip back in and see how it's going. We got Nightwing 108 solicited. Very good. Art by Stephen Byrne on this issue. So Redondo's got at least an issue off.
A little break.
Catwoman 59 is solicited. So yeah.
Still Teeny Howard.
It's part 1 of a new arc, so she'll be there for at least another few issues. Yeah. We got Poison Ivy issue 16, along with 17 for the start of December. So I'm sure you're excited by that.
Yep. We got Takara back on art, it looks like. So yeah.
Yeah. Birds of Prey issue 3 solicited for November, and then issue 4 solicited for December. Excited to see that. I am digging, particularly issue 4 has Barda and what looks to be Wonder Woman fighting on the cover, and that seems like fun to me. So very good. We got Harley Quinn issue 34. We have the Penguin issue 4. We got Batman and Robin issue 3. There's always this weird period of time when a book's been solicited and it's not started yet, and we get to issue 3 in the solicits where I'm like, oh, that's a thing that exists, but I don't remember it yet because it's not actually started coming out yet. That's where this book lies. Batman Brave and the Bold issue 7 is here. We got Batman Superman World's Finest issue 21, and it looks like we're getting some Kingdom Come stuff on that cover.
Yep.
If I was to make any guesses.
Yep.
Batman Beyond Neo Gothic issue 5, The Flash issue 3.
Yeah.
Matt, did your wife just sneeze?
She did. Gazoon tight. I didn't think the mic was gonna pick it up. So.
Oh, I heard it.
Yeah.
It was very sudden, but I heard it. That's a cool cover of Flash, actually. That's cool. And then we got Amazon's Attack issue 2. This is the Josie Campbell series that I'm actually pretty pumped to check out when it comes. With Mary Marvel as one of the main characters. Very good. We got Wonder Woman issue 3. I'll tell you this, all of the comic creators on Twitter who have read it early, have read the first 2 issues, are all praising it. They're all saying good things. Gail Simone was praising it. So obviously we're excited to try the first issue next month. But yeah, so very cool. Also, that target behind her makes it look like there's a Captain America shield behind her, doesn't it?
It does.
On the cover, yeah. Just Society of America issue 9. Very different cover style for this issue compared to what the books had, because Mikkel Janin's still the interior artist, but the cover's different.
You know what though? It's got Black Canary and Liberty Bell front and center. So, well, front, not center. Wonder Woman's in the center, but you know what I meant.
It seems like it's to your taste. I
Yes.
I think that's fair to say. We got Jay Garrick the Flash issue 2. So
he's fighting a Doomsday Bear. I don't like that.
Do you know what? I didn't really put any thought into it, but you're right. I would describe this creature as Doomsday, but crossed over with a bear.
Yeah.
That is exactly what that is.
Don't like that.
We have Alan Scott Green Lantern issue 2, and he's in Arkham Asylum, apparently, going by that cover. It's a very nice cover as well, actually. It's very moody, very pretty. So that's cool. And then we got Wesley Dawes the Sandman issue 2 by Robert Venditti, and unfortunately Riley Rosmo on art.
I keep forgetting this book's coming out and I get excited because it's Venditti doing pulpy, and then I see the artist and I get sad, but I'm still going to read it.
So am I. I'm definitely going to try issue 1 because I'm interested in a Sandman.
Because I keep reminding myself I really did like the Batman Shadow crossover that Rosmo did the art for
in 2017.
Yes, but hopefully he can channel some of that, not some of the other stuff.
6 years ago.
Yes.
He did one thing that Matt didn't hate 6 years ago, and he's clinging to hope.
Because his art wasn't that egregious yet. You know, he didn't get the super loopy style as of yet. So, yeah.
I believe the kids call that copium, Matt.
Oh, sure. Whatever. You got any more of it?
Sure. Got all the copium. I'll give you all the copium you can handle. We got Superman issue 8. Cool. Gleb Melenkov's on the art of this one. So... Jamal Campbell's still doing the cover, but I wonder if he's just on a break or if he's actually off doing regular art on the book. I don't know, but worth pointing out. Superman Lost issue 8.
Oh yeah, this is the book.
Yep, 8 of 10. Well, we've both dropped this now, so
yeah.
There it is. Action Comics 1059 with a really interesting cover. What looks like Steel is about to hit some Superman-esque dude in metal armor.
Maybe, or he's swinging on the people in the front. Look like ninjas or something.
I don't know. It looks like he's about to pull a heel turn on.
Yeah, but I definitely think they're on this. They're meant to be on the same side.
They probably are, but it looks like he's about to side, swipe this guy from behind. I mean, it's probably just Superman who's been given an armor suit for some reason. But my first thought when I looked at it though was like like Cyborg Superman got an upgrade or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think it is just Superman in a suit of armor for some reason. Power Girl issue 3. That's coming as well. We got Green Lantern issue 5. It's a very pretty cover on that actually.
Yes, it is.
God,
I can't wait to get back to this book.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that the Night Terrors tie-ins are done.
Yeah, it's Hal looking up at a villain, but there's like jets flying overhead and like just fire behind him.
Yeah, it looks real cool.
Yeah, it's nice. Green Lantern War Journal issue 3. This is the John Stewart book written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, which I'm pretty pumped for as well. I didn't love the backup he was doing, but we all suspected that was more to do with it being a backup and not having much page count and all that. Shazam issue 5, also with a very nice cover. So it's just a simple, Billy turning into Shazam cover, but it's nice. Dan Moore is still on art. Very excited for that. Shazam issue 6 also solicited for the start of December. By the way, what's the bet in that Nick solicits? I forget that we've already had the solicits for all the week 1 books, and I'm like, where's Shazam? Where's Batman?
I'll definitely take that bet that you forget.
I probably will. Blue Beetle issue 3 is out. When we got Blue Beetle issue 4 solicited for December. We have Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville, issue 3, as well as issue 4 solicited for December. We have Hawkgirl, issue 5, Steelworks, issue 6, Cyborg, issue 5, Green Arrow, issue 6, Yeah, this is one of these ones that I kind of forgot about because Night Terrors got in the way.
Yep.
And because the memories weren't that fond, my brain just let it go. So there you go. Oh, we got our typical 80-page anthology special for Christmas. So this is out. It's actually week 2 of December, but I guess they're soliciting this in advance so people can jump on it. So this is DC's "'Twas the Might Before Christmas."
As in Batmite.
As in Batmite, yes. So it's an 80-page book. It's got stories by Natalie Abrams, Michael W. Conrad, Josh Trujillo, Ethan Sachs, Zipporah Smith, Rob Levin, Sholly Fish. That sounds like a made-up name. And Gillian Grant. So
Sholly Fish was one of Morrison's like up-and-coming writers.
Okay.
They did a lot of the backups in Action Comics. I think there was a Jimmy story back in the New 52 era. So, yeah. But I think primarily they've also been doing a lot of those young adult graphic novels that come out. So, kind of seems perfect for that. But yeah, reading through this seems like typical Bat. I was reading the word Batmite. Typical DC super Christmassy stuff.
Yeah, I mean the chances of us reading this on a normal week are basically next to zero. So
yeah, and it is interesting too that Michael Conrad's not listed with his usual co-writer. Why am I drawing a blank on her name?
Becky Cloonan.
So that's cool. Might be his chance to do it. Show what he's fully capable of on his own. But yeah.
So then we got Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Red are issue 5. We have Batman, Gargoyle of Gotham issue 2. This is a curious one. This is the Rafael Grampa book that's coming in. It's the prestige size 4-issue book. I'm curious to check that out when it lands because it seems like maybe kind of I don't know if it's officially Black Label, but it feels effectively like a Black Label book. We got Batman City of Madness issue 2. This is the Christian Ward
yes, buddy
book. Looking forward to that as well. Oh, do you know what? There's so many good books, or books that look good, that, you know what, maybe we won't be reading Batman in December. It's possible. I
mean, the main title Batman, but we'll still be finding places to read Batman.
I mean, a lot of these minis are Batman. There's a lot of Batman here. We'll be fine. Adventure Comics 260 Facsimile Edition. Same with All-Star Comics 3. Same with Batman issue 5. What's special about Batman issue 5? Is that the first appearance of someone?
I believe so. Featuring the first appearance of the Batmobile, packed with thrills, chills, double crosses galore. This issue also contains 2 more adventures of the dynamic duo, the Book of Enchantment, the Case of the Honest Crook. Well,
it says the remolded Golden Age Batmobile, which implies that it's just a different Batmobile. So it's not necessarily the first Batmobile, it's just... I don't know, they're stretching it there if they're looking for reasons to do issues. Doom Patrol 99 Facsimile, Wonder Woman issue 1 from the 40s Facsimile, and then we got some of these young adult graphic novels. We got Batman Asylum. Sorry. I just said that autopilot. It's Barkham Asylum, and it's dog versions of Bat villains. So take that for me well. Danger Street issue 11's all the way down here for some reason, even though that will probably be the most important book of the month.
That's a weird spot for it, right?
It is weird. But that's out mid-November, regardless. The penultimate issue, meaning that the final issue will be a Christmas treat in December. So that's fun. Fables 162, The Joker, The Man Who Stopped Laughing 12, Wildcats issue 12, then we got Looney Tunes 275, Scooby-Doo Where Are You 125, World's Finest Teen Titans 5. I get that they're in alphabetical order, although Danger Street wasn't for some reason.
No.
But yeah, this feels like we're really far down the list now for some of these. But yeah,
this Doc Shaner cover.
It's good. It's good. Yeah, it's very good cover.
No, that's a Somni cover. I'm sorry.
Somni. This is it's Batman and Robin. I mean, the Titans are in the background, but it's a Batman and Robin cover, effectively.
And it's very moody. I like it.
Yeah. So, and then we go down to the trades and collections. I think we got Tales of the Amazons. We got Absolute Justice League: The World's Greatest Superheroes by Alex Ross and Paul Dini. I
feel like this is a book that will never be out of print. Because they just keep doing new versions of it.
Yeah. I've not read it, funnily enough.
Yeah, no, it's more of I think an art showcase than anything, and Steeny kind of doing his, basic storytelling of their, if not their origins, what makes them pop as characters. So.
Yeah, I don't think I've read any of these.
Yep. It's Batman War on Crime, Shazam Power of Hope.
I've read Justice, but I didn't think that counted as one of these. Because that's a full 12-issue series, but whatever. Yeah. We got Batman Volume 6 Abyss, which was Williamson's last arc, I think. Batman Shadow of the Bat House of Gotham, which is a story from Detective Comics 1047 to 1058. Oh, yeah.
That's the one that we really liked, right? That follows the kid.
Oh, yeah, that's Rosenberg's backups. Yeah. Oh, okay.
With Fernando Blanco on the art. Oh, I'm going to buy this for sure.
Yeah, I was confused. I thought this was like an old collection of some old material.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This might be my favorite thing that Rosenberg's written for DC as a story. It's
up there. It's absolutely up there. We got Batman Shadows of the Bat, The Tower, which is obviously just the Tower storyline. We got Black Adam Volume 2, East of Egypt. We got DC Power, A Celebration hardcover, DC vs. Vampires Volume 1 softcover, Nightwing Volume 2. Oh.
I'd say just buy the DC vs. Vampires Volume 1. Don't even worry about Volume 2.
Nightwing Volume 2 softcover, and that's it.
That's it.
So yeah, short collection section this month, but hey, we ain't complaining.
Nope.
Alright, there you go. Very good. Yeah, alright, well with that said, we can get ourselves into the books. So we'll start off with Night Terrors issue 4. Joshua Willamson writing with Stefano, Nesi, Caspar, Wijngaard, and Giuseppe Camuncoli on the art. So, not the conclusion. As Matt found out.
Yep.
When he read it. But yeah, where does this lie? I think the basic structure of this issue is perfectly fine. I think it's better than last issue. But I wouldn't say that it turns my mind on it, by the end.
No,
I still feel kind of lukewarm in the whole thing.
Yeah, it still does that fun thing with a different introduction by Dead Man. So that's a benefit or a bonus. I think
I liked early on. I liked that it was a simple goal. It was Robin, Sandman, and Deadman and Batman going into Arkham Tower and be like, we have to find his body, because that's a very it's a very Freddy Krueger thing. So we have to find we have to find his body to stop all this from happening. Like that setup was fine. Them walking about the creepy halls that aren't all nightmare. They're all perfectly clean. Damien even falling asleep for a moment because he's manually just keeping himself awake. All those beats I think were fine. I think where it falls down is when they actually get to him, and then so obviously
I would have literally wanted anything else to be his origin than the origin that we got.
Well, we knew, because he said before, there was a tease before that he hated the Justice League, right? So it's okay, so something happened to him that was Justice League's inadvertent fault, right? And he comes home in this flashback, right? Deadman goes into his brain, sees this flashback, and this guy comes home, he's wearing a Justice League t-shirt, and he says to his family, the Justice League's fighting some bad guy or some evil Batman down the streets, which I guess means we're doing metal or one of the metals. And he's like, hey, they told us we should evacuate, but I think we'll be fine. And then literally seconds later, the building is reduced to ash because something hits into it. And then he's upset because his family's all dead. And all I could think was, I realize you probably wouldn't have had time to do anything, but the way you came home as if it was a casual day of coming home from the office and said, the Justice League are fighting some bad guys down the street. I'm sure we'll be fine. I feel like he was kind of asking for this tragedy.
Well, it's that's not leaving during a hurricane and then being like, the hurricane destroyed my house with my family in it. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like in the DC universe, when a crisis level event is happening, they're pretty good at evacuating the cities at a certain point. I
mean, I'm not even thinking about it in a big picture level. I'm just going by what's in the panels in this comic.
Yeah.
He comes in and says the Justice League are fighting supervillains down the street and shrugs it off and just says, "What's for dinner?" And then is surprised when his building is demolished.
Do you think that's Williamson though trying to get on the not the mediocrity, but just how everything in the DC universe is just it's the Justice League up to some world saving shenanigans. It's oh, what's for dinner? You know what I mean? Like, you think he's trying to make a commentary on that and just not and being clumsy, or do you just think it's very clumsy writing to get to the point that his family's gone?
I mean, I wouldn't rule out that he's trying to make a statement with it. I think for me, the problem is that it immediately made me think this guy, even before he became Insomnia, was just an idiot.
Yeah, true, could be.
So I just have no respect for him as a villain now, because I think he's lame.
I just, I know that he held the Justice League responsible for the death of his family, but I would have liked to be a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Open to interpretation. Was it really the Justice League responsible, or, were you not responsible in taking care? Something along those lines that kind of, it's not just they're responsible for the death of my family. I'm angry. I want the Nightmare Stone. I don't know. It's just it's a bit too simple.
Well, I mean, the Nightmare Stone came a bit later, because that was after the Lazarus Reign. The stuff, but because he was already in a coma, right? That's the thing, is he ended up going in a coma, and basically Insomnia kills himself because if you die in the dream, you die in the real world. So he does that so that he's not tethered to his body anymore.
Yeah, he's
and
out.
The nightmares bleed out into reality. And this all builds up to what Batman woke up and saw. It's just very convenient that Batman... Because we were really confused why Batman was waking up in the place that he started. And I guess he's technically not, but they were in Arkham Tower, I think, at the start of the story, so...
I don't remember. But yeah. But we kind of figured that out because Williamson did write the Batman one. So for him to end up there and we get to see that from Batman's perspective again, well, not from Batman's perspective, but from a different perspective of Damian telling him that they lost and whatever.
Well, because, everyone's woken up. Everyone wakes up at the same time. At least all the heroes do anyway.
Yeah.
And, the world's in the shitter. And it seems like, along with, the nightmares becoming real, a lot of the bad things from the nightmares come real. So the final page is Gunbat...
Yeah,
and
the Super Reaper from Superman.
Yeah,
and then whatever Diana snake creature from Wonder Woman. Night Terrors.
So I guess some of those tie-ins ended up being mildly relevant because the villain henchmen that were created in them are now in the main story for one issue. So Night's End is the final issue of this thing. We still have all the artists. I don't think it's as jarring as previous issues, and I think part of that is because the flashback takes up a lot more time this issue, so it kind of feels more natural to shift to a different art for that. So I guess that's a slight improvement, but I mean, at this point, we're kind of just it's not complete shit. It's a little bit better. That's kind of the tone of which we're speaking here.
I mean, I still didn't like this issue that much. I thought it was fine. I feel like it's run its course, but I did enjoy the early stuff that did feel like a Nightmare movie, a Nightmare on Elm Street. The Damian falling asleep while going up the stairs because he's so, spent, right? And he doesn't even realize he's falling asleep because he's just going through the motions. I like that part of it because that did remind me of one of the Freddy Krueger movies. So it hit that vibe. I just wish it was kind of as fun as some of those movies.
Yeah, I think it also feels a bit weird that they've all woke up into this nightmare version of the world because Insomnia has done this. It feels weird to me that we're doing this cliffhanger right before there's only one issue left, because it feels like no matter what, we're going to rush the conclusion to this now.
Right. I'm not going to be surprised if Dream from the Endless comes down and be like, yo, Deus Ex Machina this, what are you doing?
This reveal, this sort of status quo that's established at the end of this issue, it feels like that should be the end of Act 1. So if it's a 6-issue book, that should be the end of issue 2. And then a lot of the story should be in this nightmare world, try to solve the problem and figure out what this has done to the world and so on. But instead we're going to be wrapping up in one. I mean, I'm sure it's an oversized issue, but it's not going to be that long.
See, I have it open right now for next week's books, so
it'll be a 48-page book or something like that. I'm sure.
Yeah. And that is a bingo.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much I've got left to say about Night Terrors at this point. I feel like it's a lot of the same complaints.
Yeah.
Insomnia has been a bit of a whiff of the villain. The general concept when it started was pretty solid, but I've just not really liked anything that they've done with it.
I really hate the concept of the Nightmare Stone. I just kind of wish he had the Lazarus powers of, he got amped up in this dream. He's able to cause, the nightmares or whatever. But yeah, just the whole concept of the Nightmare Stone and then it being a dead man and all this other stuff kind of is taking a lot of the fun out for me. You set up this status quo early on where the entire world's asleep except a few key people and they're going to have to try and stop the bad guy. And you did nothing with that status quo. Yeah. You did nothing with this idea of like going through the world and like everyone's asleep, so you can get away with certain things that you wouldn't be able to get away with. You can, or you have to think about the safety of people who are just lying around because they can't run out of the way. Like they didn't do anything with that world they created by the end of the first issue, or by the end of the prelude issue even, because it was before issue 1. Yeah, the whole thing just feels like a bit of a whiff as far as like actually. And even stuff in like Superman where he falls into the ocean, it's like, well, what happened to everybody else that was like the pilots that had fallen asleep, right, in the planes? Like all this other more interesting stuff of how the superheroes, in a world of superheroes, you would think like, oh, they'll be fine, and there's a way to tie that into his origin, right? Like you would think that Insomnia wouldn't, or maybe that was his plan. Maybe he wanted to make everyone else have the same nightmares he had. Well, lose his family. There's layers there that could have been played with that just aren't.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. There should be thousands of people who have died in plane crashes because all these people fell asleep. But it feels like the book's just never going to mention that as if it's never happened. Yeah,
it almost feels like they only took a 20-minute nightmare nap. And everything's going to be fine. So.
That would be enough to crash some planes, though. Surely.
Oh, yeah. Some that are, like, on landing and whatever. But, like, But yeah, just there's more like interesting concepts in here.
That said though, regardless of what it feels like, Matt, it says in this comic it's hour 7 of the nightmare.
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. Like the Zatanna book was pretty okay because she wasn't asleep, and we got a little bit of that.
No, issue 2 of the Zatanna book sucked. Issue 2 might as well have been a nightmare bit because she was just running around a maze being chased by a monster. It might as well have been asleep.
I should specify the first issue of that was kind of it kind of did that stuff, and then in the Superman book, the Aquaman, you find out that they didn't was that in the first issue or was that the second? I can't remember at this point. That they didn't get affected because of their pressure systems in their ears. Whatever caused the sleep wave didn't affect them because of their Atlantean physiology. So there's all these little things in there that they put into these tie-ins that overall I guess don't matter, but they're definitely more interesting than this Insomnia stuff. So, but yeah, it's a shame.
It's just not using I feel like this is something Willamson did a lot in his Flash run, and it's something he's just really guilty of. Is that he'll set up an interesting idea and then he won't actually use it to act like. Like the comparison I can give is that when you're making like a B movie, right, is you set up what the interesting status quo is for the characters to have to like deal with, and then the movie, the fun of the movie usually is seeing how they get around and say, I don't know, they're trapped in a mall and the robot security guards start killing everyone, right? So the movie's about trying to get out of the mall, and it's like try to like figure out and plot against them and figure out their weaknesses and all that. I feel like Joshua Willamson will set up something interesting, i.e. in this case, he sets up this world where everyone but a few people are asleep, and they have to try and save the world when there's no one around to help them.
Yeah.
And then, effectively, in the very next issue after they set that up, okay, wake up Wesley Dodds, right? Resurrect him to help. That's a really cool, interesting thing. But right after that, it was like, oh, we're just going to go to a lab, he's going to like mix a concoction, and then we're going to go straight to using it, and we're going to spend most of the issue in a flashback. And I feel like he just whiffs. Like he sets up a cool idea and then doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I class him with like George Lucas, who's a great idea guy, not an excellent execution guy.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need that person to help bring it out, and But yeah.
All right, what are you giving Night Terrors for?
This is 6.0.
I'll go 5.
There you go. I almost said 6.5, but then I dropped it a half because I remember how annoyed I got. I read this on my one break I got on Tuesday, and I got very annoyed. That's how I spent it.
Okay, Night Terrors Detective Comics issue 2, Dan Waters with Riccardo Federici. This was the one tie-in I actually made a point of reading this week because the first half was quite good and felt like it worked on its own regardless of its connection to everything else. Whereas even the other ones that were okay, the more connected they had to be, the worse they felt. Whereas this one never, and just to, to get into the second issue of it, this second issue still worked. Like it still told this interesting story. Of Gordon fighting these Cenobite-like things and looking for the people who conjured them up in the first place.
And I feel like this plays into the Dan Waters idea of Gotham that we got in his Arkham Asylum book, right? With the Ten-Eyed Man, and just like there's these horrors just underneath the surface waiting to pop up at any given moment. And here he chose to focus that on almost Gotham itself, and that these nightmares that came out from, what are they called, the Pentapriests?
The Pentapriest,
from the fifth dimension is that they're almost things that are supposed to help Gotham, but in turn only make it worse, right? It's the money, it's the knowledge, it's the force and the strength and whatever. So there's at least a through line through the book in the grand scheme of Detective Comics and Batman that, I give him credit for. Like there's a continuity of ideas that we've seen from Waters.
Yeah, and the art's obviously gorgeous from Federici. But yeah, so this book is Gordon, so the woman who was like coughing up the diamonds and has died from said diamond-related injuries, left a note saying like her and this other rich guy were brought in by this ringleader to use the device to conjure the Pentapriests. And it was kind of this monkey's paw thing where she asked for the wealth to fight all the crime, and she started coughing up diamonds. Whereas the guy turned in, he wanted the strength to fight the crime, so he became this weird demonic version of the bat robot. So he's going around in that with the big exposed teeth, and Gordon goes to track him down, and Gordon obviously, like, he's starting to shatter, he's starting to crack like he's made of glass, and that leads to some fun moments here. The art here's gorgeous. There's a moment where the bat monster like fires like laser beams at the car that Gordon's in, and this page is just stunning. Like the way it feels like Gordon's getting into like the apocalypse, the way that the glow of the orange and all that is going on.
It's Judgment Day Gotham.
Absolutely. And Gordon tricks him into thinking that this guy's family was in the car. He goes over.
Dirty trick by good old Jim, but I appreciate it.
But he's planted a bomb, so the bat monster gets. But he ends up taking off his own arm and like part of his face. So Gordon's like walking around with like, so it's really proper like horror movie imagery with like part of his face missing.
Well, and not to compare, the Willamson horror stuff, because I feel like sometimes Willamson does do the fun horror. Waters just. He hits the little things like you're talking about, like the piece of his face missing, right? And it's like the subtle kind of horror that I think translates to nightmare stuff a little bit more than the main book.
Yeah. So this thing dies, and Gordon like needs to know who the first person was, who the ringleader was. And it's kind of clear at a certain point that it's pointing towards Babs, and he runs to the clock tower. He goes in, and she's like shattering like he is. She's like on the floor, her legs separated from her torso, which obviously is symbolic of her real injury. Obviously, all of this makes sense. It's this idea that he thinks he's failed so much in protecting the city that it forced his daughter to like do something extreme, which in the real world was like become Batgirl and be a vigilante and do all that stuff. But he like holds himself responsible for that, and that he's going to get her killed because she feels she needs to do this because he's failed. So all of these things come into it, and literally they talk about in the dialogue how life is so fragile, and they're literally fragile right now because they're cracking and falling apart. Oh dear. But of course, it all comes to a head, and. Barbara destroys the sort of watch thing that conjured them, the the lament configuration of this story, if you will.
Yep.
And basically we see those giant eyes in the sky. I'd forgotten about this until they popped back up again, because this was in one panel in issue 1 as well. Was like this set of eyes prying, and I did appreciate as well that this could be set up for a future story, because these fifth dimensional Penta priests, it kind of sounds like they're not just from the dream. Like, it sounds like they've invaded because this dream thing's going on, but they're actually a real thing from a fifth dimension.
Yeah. Which fits in with the whole, Mixapitala and Batmite, and that, like, what are truly evil creatures from that realm like, right?
Oh yeah, they're definitely different from those.
Yeah. But they are from the fifth dimension nonetheless, right? So, but yeah, just that whole eerie part of the ending of, like, they've been, not that they've been there the whole time, but they could be conjured at any time. Right? Now they have eyes on Gotham.
Yeah. Actually, now that I'm looking at it, I think the eyes that's looking down from the sky is just Insomnia. I think that's the one way that they've tied in Insomnia into this.
Oh,
is that they say that he's the architect of the dream.
Mm-hmm.
But these Penta priests, they say that it's time for him to wake up. We're tired of these eyes of the architect watching us. So it definitely implies that they are a real entity from somewhere. And I'd be very curious if Dan Waters gets to, like, tell a story about these guys at some point.
And I will read that story, because it has that whole vibe again of the 10-eyed man, right? Like, there's just this creepiness to them and unsettlingness that just fits into his version of Gotham.
Honestly, I would recommend this 2-issue thing over the main book. I would say you could read this on its own, and it'll be a satisfying, creepy little horror nightmare story. And Gordon does wake up at the end just to confirm, no, this was a dream. His hand's okay. And
what's his name? Sorrow. Sorrow's still alive. He didn't get killed.
The kid, yeah. But at the end of the book, there's a little tease that there's maybe going to be something to come from this, because someone's buying this clock, this watch device from a store. This guy's asking for it, and the clockmaker's like, no, I don't have anything like that, but it's there anyway, kind of mysteriously. And he's like, name your price, and it glows, and that's the end.
Yeah.
So that could just be like a creepy, hey, it's still out there ending, but this could also totally lead into a miniseries or something later.
Something. Yeah. At every chance, Dan Waters just him with these, like, smaller stories. And I want to go back and read his Azrael stuff. Because if it's even half as good as what this is, it's worth a read.
Yeah, this is legitimately really good. Like, it's creepy. You get the metaphor for what it's talking about, Jim and Barbara, and because it isn't the real world, it's okay that Barbara turned out to be this cult leader, because it's not real. It represents, it represents Jim's fears of her doing extreme things to try and protect the city.
She wanted the knowledge, right, of how to.
Yes.
Right, and that's why it also affected him, right? Because they're both fragile because of their knowledge of Gotham, right? That's how I read it.
And obviously we've brought up a couple times, but it is just stunning. These Penta priests, every page they're on, look fantastic. The fiery stuff with the car looks great. Every time Gordon's, like, missing a part of his face because of the cracked sort of glass effect. All of it looks phenomenal. It is worth mentioning that final little page, that little epilogue with the guy getting the watch, is a completely different artist. It's unavoidable to notice because he's not Federici, and it's very clear. But it is just the last page, and it's meant to be like this epilogue thing, so it works, I guess. Like, it's not that intrusive because it is just a separate thing. Because it's away from Gordon, it's away from what the main story's been.
It's almost like a bookend.
So I would wonder if there is plans to do something, if maybe this artist at the end is the artist that will be doing it, and that's why they've done this little din, or maybe that's just, like, wishful thinking, that there's thought put into it, as opposed to just, oh shit, there's not time to do that last page, give it to Joe. Because we need to read the page done so the book's out in time, which it could be as well. I really don't know.
That was Mike Perkins.
Do you know what it looks like? Yeah, I never said it looked bad. I want to make that clear.
No.
It just doesn't look like Federici.
I remember seeing Perkins' name on the credits page, and I'm wondering if that's his page right there.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So,
every other page is definitely Federici.
yeah.
So
You also have Stefano Raffaele, but that could just be an inker as well. So, yeah, you tell me Dan Waters and Mike Perkins doing a Dark Gotham book, I'm there. You know, if that's what spins out of this,
I mean,
please.
it would be Hellraiser in Gotham. That's the pitch. Oh god, that page of the explosion with the Bat monster flying back is just stunning. So yeah, if like I'm not saying it was worth the 2 months of like all the books being paused, but the one good thing to come out of this whole Night Terrors debacle is this 2-part miniseries.
Yeah.
It's by far the best thing that's happened across both months. So I recommend this on its own and just this and nothing else. So there you go. What are you rating Night Terrors Detective Comics?
I'm rating this a solid 8.
Yeah, you know what, I'll even go 8.5. I think the overall craftsmanship, the art, all of it's very good. Recommend it. Alright, Night Terrors Action Comics issue 2, Leah Williams, Philip Kennedy Johnson, and Vasco Georgiev. You read this. I did not. I drew that line and said, no, I've got enough to read. I don't need all these Night Terrors tie-ins.
Yeah. So this is Leah Williams, and you can tell she has an affinity for Power Girl because she revealed something that I didn't even know, and I run pretty deep when it comes to, you know, all the super characters and their origins. And so this picks up where it left off, where Paige keeps going through like this in the cycle. It's almost like the Matrix, right? Where she you know, breaks out of the nightmares and then ends up back in this pod, and she breaks out and she says that, you know, at a certain point, not that she's counting, but she's done it like 453 times, right? And each time Omen is there to stop her, and then she you know, comes to realize that, you know, that's not Omen, this is something else completely. And she gets past Omen, and it takes on this like weird, almost Brainiac kind of vibe. Like it's like almost like this talking computer, and it says, you know, Kara Zor-El, we're only trying to do what's best for you. We're trying to make you the best that we can. And she starts to talk about something called the symbiote ship, right? And so I go, and of course I have to know if the symbiote ship's been in anything, right? Because it seems like, I don't know, Golden Age, Silver Age enough. And sure enough, in the original Power Girl origin, much like Kara showing up later, right? After Clark, Kara Zor-El on Earth 2 ended up later, but her ship ended up having like the symbiotic relationship with her, and it, you know, it helped her age at a normal rate. So by the time she got to Earth, she still wasn't, you know, she wasn't younger than Clark, but she was a fully grown a fully grown adult by that point, right? So through this, you know, story idea, Leah Williams is taking the whole psychology of Kara. Her nightmare is that the ship is still trying to form her into the ultimate Kryptonian being, and that's not who she wants to be. So it keeps reminding her of her failures and how she's alone, and she's like, you know, she ends up defeating it by reminding her, like, yeah, I already know all this, and I'm okay with it. So she ends up breaking out of the dream, right? You assume that the Night Terrors ends, and she comes out, and the first thing she does is she runs in to see Omen, who's still asleep, and jumps onto her bed, scares Streaky, who's sleeping with Omen on her bed, and she goes, I just wanted to check, and Omen's like, okay, yeah, whatever. And then when Paige had defeated the symbiote ship thing, you know, when she tells it that, you know, I know who I am, you don't have to tell me, it like crash lands into the water, right? And the last scene in this part of the story is what looks like a piece of the ship getting onto a hermit crab, which then is picked up by some fishermen and brought back into a port, where now it looks like it's spreading almost like a Brainiac virus kind of thing onto the small little island. It says to be continued in Power Girl. So much like the Detective Comic ones, we just it seems like this is you know, it's at least Leah Williams trying to work in to a later story. You know, whatever her nightmare was, it'll be able to play into whatever the Power Girl story is. gonna mess it up, but Georgiev, whichever one it is. The art's pretty good. We get a lot of repeat stuff because as she's going out and breaking out of the Matrix, it's a lot of like kind of copy paste the panels that we've already seen, but it's done in a real like artistic style where it's not just the same ones on repeat. They're kind of scattered about, so it looks real cool. And the fight scene with the symbiote ship isn't so much a fight, but it's her talking, but there's still some dynamic there in between them. Like the art's not just single panel type stuff. It's a big splash page of her telling the ship no. So really liked it. It is not that it's a necessary piece to the Power Girl story, but you can tell that Leah Williams really has an affection for Power Girl and wants to make her stand on her own, even through something like Night Terrors. So that was the first half. The back half is the continuation of the Cyborg Superman nightmare that the Super Family's having.
From what I remember, I liked most of that first half of that story, and then at the end, I could tell it was pivoting into just like big action nonsense.
Well, so you might want to go back and read this one just because of what it does with Osul and Ortho, because they're the main stars of this one. So it gets to that point where Crypto and Connor and I think Natasha are all kind of fused into this new cyborg Superman, and it starts to come after Ortho and Osul, and as they Keenan gets them out of the apartment and down into Metropolis, but they start to realize that Metropolis is now starting to turn into Warworld. And this is where they realize they're in this nightmare realm. And the first thing, as they're trying to run from Cyborg Superman, he starts telling the sister about, like, you don't really trust your brother, do you? Because, he was brought back by Superman making this deal to get the power from this old dead god, and you don't really trust that that's your brother anymore, right? And then it goes after the brother, and I'm using sister and brother because I still forget who's who, and I don't want to. My iPad's not working that well, so I don't want to pop back open to the story. But so then it starts telling the brother, about how the sister, he doesn't trust her because she fought for those chains, and that fighter, that war Zune is always going to be in her no matter what she does, and it's almost these inner like almost intrusive thoughts that's fueling their nightmares, but as the nightmares keep going, the brother and sister end up realizing what's going on, and that, like, no, Superman saved them, but more importantly, they kind of saved themselves, and now they have this new family, and they don't have to deal with this all on their own. And so they end up defeating the Cyborg Superman and all the War World type stuff, only to end up back in the apartment at the end where they wake up and kind of discuss with the family what had gone on. So nice little tie to Warworld stuff here. Definitely lesser on the Cyborg Superman, but the art in this one is as good as Philip Kennedy Johnson is. Seeing Metropolis switch into Warworld, and then each of the brother and sister, are they twins? Are they? Yeah, because we're calling them the Super Twins, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe.
I thought I read that. Anyway, seeing each of them. And each of what their struggle looked like through our world. So when the boy that was resurrected, everything's bathed in blue, like the energy that was gifted to him by Superman to resurrect him. And with the girl, everything's in that reddish orange that was in Warworld. And yeah, so very, very adept storytelling from Philip Kennedy Johnson on this one. So. Should I do each of the stories or just as a whole?
Just as a whole, I think, yeah. Just
as a whole? I'll give the whole thing a 7.5. Just mainly because the Night Terror stuff is kind of, based. But the fact that both of these writers and the artists themselves are trying to tell a story that is still unique to these characters. That's not just Night Terrors. That's not just fully, based on that. I give that a lot of credit. So yeah, 7.5.
Okay. Batman Superman World's Finest, issue 18. Mark Waid writing with Travis Moore on the art. So, this is a flashback story, which is funny to say because the regular book's always set in the past anyway, but this is set further in the past because this is the first time Batman and Superman work together. Mark Waid's getting to insert his own version of a big bit of continuity. So the story revolves around the Riddler, who leaves like a weird message on one of his crime scenes, and when Clark sees it, he realizes it's Kryptonian, and that makes him want to come to Gotham. Later on, there's a comment that implies that Batman's been operating for about a year. So, yeah, sure enough, Superman goes to Gotham and talks to Jim Gordon, asks for what he knows about what's going on. And then quite quickly, Batman's eavesdropping on that conversation, and they have a bit of a conversation. And this stuff's really fun because like they don't reveal who they are yet. Superman makes a point of saying that he's respecting his privacy but not just looking through his mask, and Batman's like, well, you know, I've been keeping track of you, and you seem to mostly be quiet during like US office hours, so that implies you've got a day job. You tend to like, he starts like just picking at things, and it's like, you know, your accent, you sound like you're from Kansas. It's like, oh, like he's nailing this. Like he's just getting all these things right. But people are disappearing. That's the big thing that's happening, other than the Riddler stuff, is that random civilians are fading away into nothing. Kind of like that episode of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Out of Mind, Out of Sight, starring Clea Duvall from season 1.
That's the first one I remember watching, was that episode.
Very nice.
So,
very nice.
Yeah.
So, you know, all fine and well. They catch a couple of villains. What is it? Spellbinder and Magpie. Are up to no good. And this is really just a few pages to really enjoy the Travis Moore art, which, while, you know, we don't have Dan Moore on this book anymore, the art here is very good.
Yeah, I think it's Superman that's punching up through the manhole cover.
Yeah.
Right, to stop the car. That's a fun little piece. Or he grabs the car as he punches up through it, you know. Yeah,
and the simple little colouring thing is that the background there is yellow, so his blue sleeve really pops, because they're contrasting colours. Just a simple little thing. You know, Batman's got more of a blue vibe to his like suit. He's got kind of the old school sort of dark part of his cowl, but the rest of it's more blue. So they're going for an old school vibe, and it's all very very good. Batman says that he'll know how to reach him, and sure enough, he basically just puts in a request to see Clark Kent. And this is after Alfred disappears. Alfred's the next victim, where he fades away into nothing. So he gets desperate, he calls for Clark to offer an interview, and then immediately Bruce starts talking about how he's Superman, and Clark tries to play coy, like, oh no, you're not right. And Bruce has got all this evidence to back it up. He's been tracking flight patterns. The two most common places he flies to are the Daily Planet building and his apartment building. It's like, you're Clark Kent. So that's when Clark finally looks through the floor and sees the Batcave, and everything's on the table, and it's like, you know, so yeah. And Bruce's like argument for just telling him is kind of interesting. He's like, look, you know, things are getting serious and whatnot, but honestly, I'm not going to start wearing a lead cowl. All right, so like we might as well just have this on the table so that we can form some kind of partnership. Not that he wants to work together, because Batman doesn't like working with people. No. At least not yet, because it's the early days of Batman. But, right. Yeah. So yeah, they get another Riddler message at a memorial, which leads them to a location. Riddler is actually quite scared, though. He's seemingly scared by some shadowy figure who's kind of like a phantom. And the big reveal is that this villain's a Kryptonian. Unsurprising because of the Kryptonian language. But it turns out to be Jack Sewer, who has escaped the Phantom Zone and sends Batman into the Phantom Zone. So all these people who've been fading away, they're fading into the Phantom Zone. That's what the reveal is at the end. And Jack Sewer's got Superman by the neck, and Batman is off in the Phantom Zone, and that's the big cliffhanger ending. This was really good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. The art is really good. It pops. The colors really pop. It's got the bold, you know, reds and blues. It's got all that stuff. Riddler's green really sticks out. just the fun of them interacting for the first time, and Waid just poking at fun of how Batman's basically just figured out who he is already. Superman obviously can use his powers to figure out who Batman is as soon as he wants to. Just all these little things are the first times is a lot of fun. I will say, Batman's already got that dinosaur in the cave though.
Yeah.
So Waid's saying that in canon that was in his first year operating as Batman. That's a bold choice.
So it goes the origin in year one that Miller did, right?
Yes.
And then immediately after that's the dinosaur story.
It must be. Based on what we're seeing here, it must be.
Or Travis Moore just wanted to draw the dinosaur in the cave.
I mean, that's the more likely option, is that.
I will say, not having finished this, only getting through the first third or so, coming back and looking at that through the art with more, there's just some really striking images here. You know, Clark in the Bat Cave when he shows that he's Superman, right? It looks straight out of one of the movies, you know, from the Christopher Reeve. And then them in broad daylight, Batman and Superman reading the Gotham Memorial thing. Just, it's so Silver Age and silly. Like, but Moore really makes it work. Like, there's a certain like heaviness to his art that it doesn't seem completely out of hand. So
that stuff's good. I think, you know, I think the transition to Moore and whoever else we've had since Mora is switched to the other book is basically, it's been so smooth, and it's kept the feeling and the style, even though it doesn't look like Dan Mora art. It doesn't, but it's keeping that ultra clean Silver Age vibe going. And the layouts are still really good. And like the colors do pop. Like, see when you get to that first page where you see the Riddler, the purple and the green pop so much because we've barely had any of those colors, so they really stick out as feeling different. Because, you know, when Superman and Batman, it's all blue and a bit of red and yellow. You know, like everything's kind of been in that color palette up until that point, so he really sticks out as being different. You know, although now that I'm skimming through the book again, Jim Gordon's tie is green, so there's a little bit of green elsewhere, but not much. It's very limited. So, you know, I appreciate that. And hell, even Gordon talking to Superman, you know, and him feeling weird about it. Actually, there's a little joke here where Gordon says he's got no way to signal Batman, and then sort of like pauses and goes, that's not a bad idea. So Waid's also establishing that the bat signal doesn't exist until at least a year after Batman comes on the scene.
Which would make sense, though, because I think the police would want to wait that out, right?
Yeah. Thinking about it, I don't think year one has that at the end. Obviously, Batman Begins does, but that's a movie, that's different.
Right.
Long Halloween definitely does, and that's meant to be like not a year two story, but it's meant to be early, like in the early years.
Right.
So
yeah, because it's Bruce teaming up with Gordon and Dent to you know, to make a.
At the same time, though, there's quite a big rogues gallery already formed, so it has to be a couple of years in at least. But yeah, it's just an interesting little detail that you threw in there, that there's no bat signal yet. But I get the feeling between this and like Teen Titans, which is also set in like the Silver Age sort of time period, it does just kind of feel like they've given Waid carte blanche to just see that era you love referencing. Why don't you just go write multiple books in that era and just do like, but modernize it a bit? But typically you're just doing that part of the timeline and go nuts. Just don't contradict anything too badly. And he's been let loose. I like this a lot.
Yeah,
this is really good.
Real quick, do you know why Jax Ur was put into the Phantom Zone? Do you know the reason?
Off the top of my head?
Yep.
I don't remember. I bet I know it when you tell me it, though.
Yep. So he conducted an experiment that destroyed one of Krypton's moons. And so, you know, Jor-El was forced to use the Phantom Zone technology to put him in there because that was the fate that the Science Council had determined for him.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yep, because he killed 500 people when that were living on that moon.
So he's a Kryptonian terrorist, basically. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, but like he wasn't like, it says here he was an immoral and criminally deviant scientist. So yeah, you know, I don't think there was any, you know, do this or I'll blow the moon up. He was just like, hey, watch me blow that moon up.
By the way, that full page spread when Superman gets punched out of the ship by him
So good.
Yeah, just before it reveals who it is, again, it's another fantastic page, another fantastic panel, even.
Yep.
Just really gorgeous. So, yeah. And for color scheme reasons, I like that Jack Stewart also wears green, because it just makes him side with the villain side. Not that green's always a bad color, of course, but just in the context of this issue, it kind of represents.
It ties them together.
Yeah. So, neat. Really good. What are you giving World's Finest, Matt?
Oh, okay. Judging from going through there and the story that I like, I'm going to give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I agree. 8.5. That's very good. It's a really fun classic Superman Batman romp. And I think it's benefiting from being quite simple versus, because I think some of the previous arcs that I've enjoyed in this have maybe suffered a little bit from like overly complex, where there's like all this backstory to set up and like all these guest characters also there. This one being simpler because there's no Robin or Supergirl around, or no Doom Patrol, even though I like all those characters and I like seeing them.
Yeah.
It's making this one feel a bit more streamlined, which is nice. So, cool. The Penguin, issue 1, Tom King writing with Rafael de Latorre on the art. So, we were very curious about this. Obviously, a Tom King book gets our eyes to light up. Yeah, it's set in continuity. Obviously, the stuff with Penguin's kids taking over all of his business in Gotham is, relevant, and it's referenced. It's not, they don't go into it too much in this issue, but it is referenced, and it's probably going to be important in coming issues.
Yeah.
But so the main narrative trick of this issue, right? And I think it's interesting that it's kind of set in references at some events in Killing Time, although thematically it feels quite different. Is that had its gimmick, right? That had the time gimmick where it kept saying, this time and date, and it would jump around to different people on that time or that day, and it would build up a story around that, right? And every issue did that. This series seems to have its own gimmick as well, which is that there's multiple narrators, but the narrator is never Penguin himself. It's always someone who is with Penguin or watching Penguin in the scene.
We never know what Oswald's thinking.
Yes. But it does this great job of like building him up, like the way that other people are scared of him in this issue, or impressed by him, or like, Batman's attitude towards him and how different that is to everyone else.
Well, and his new fiance, how she just adores him by, the way that she talks about him in her monologue, right? Or whatever her narration is. Compared to how the tailor is completely like terrified of him, of saying the wrong word, right?
It's
in
funny.
Front of him.
It's almost meta to a point, because it gets to the point where it references that Batman doesn't take him seriously enough for us as the audience to realize that he's actually this scary to most regular people.
Yeah.
But he is. He bites people. Everyone's like scared of the life. But he's living quietly in Metropolis. He's supposed to be dead. And he's living his life out there. So the story starts and ends with this bookend of like something set a year later, because I think this is present day, and then it says a year ago when it goes into the main story. But Batman's crashed the Batplane into the water, and it's sinking. Cobblepot's in the seat next to him, and they're drowning. And that's kind of like what we're sort of building up to, seemingly. And we go back a year later. It's in Metropolis. He's with his tailor, and the tailor's narration here is that because he says Cobblepot seems to have lost weight, he then gets worried in his head that he's implied that he looked bad before, and starts begging for his life, and he's like, oh, what's he going to do to my wife? What's he going to do to my kids? He's going to stab them with an umbrella. He's like, he really comes across as this unhinged mob boss in this guy's head. But Penguin just says, oh, no big deal. People say things at a turn. It's not a big deal. I'll be back for my suit. He just kind of goes about it. And he's got his little bonnet cap on, and he goes to the park to feed the pigeons.
And this is where they're talking about the rule of thumb, right? Is that in this part?
No, I think that was later.
Okay.
Yeah, that was later, because that was when it was more menacing. Because the rule of thumb... So he explains this later, that the rule of thumb comes from...
this old proverb or this old story that back in like ancient history.
It's when the husband comes in to buy a.
That's right.
Because Penguin's working
from the flower shop.
Yeah, Penguin's working as a florist basically, and this guy comes in looking for flowers because he's forgot an anniversary with his wife, and he mentioned. Penguin says rule of thumb is you get what you pay for, because the guy says make it look expensive but it's not. And then he goes into just explaining where the rule of thumb comes from, and Penguin explains The rule of thumb is that back in the day when you could, like, it was acceptable to, like, assault your wife.
Beat your wife.
The rule of thumb comes from those days because it was like you can hit her with a stick, but the rule is that it can't be any thicker than your thumb, or it's too much.
Yep.
That's too much abuse.
And boy, does that come into play a little bit later.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is accurate. This origin of this phrase.
I've heard this too, but I've also heard people debunk it and go that's not. There's different origins for that term of rule of thumb. But yeah, I've definitely heard this one. On the internet.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning that because of all these narration boxes on every scene, it is a very dense read, but
yes.
I have to say every scene was very captivating. Like every single scene I was super into.
It took me 3 times to read this, not because I wasn't enjoying it, but just with the week I've had and how busy I've been sitting to read it, right before bed, and just there were so many boxes that I was just like, all right, I'll get to this tomorrow, just because it's one that I want to sit and be able to read. And it took multiple times, but I'm glad that I got through it because, yeah, every scene, it just has like a richness to it.
It does this great thing where it builds where, so you've got, not including the Batman thing because that's kind of a separate bookend, is you've got this opening scene where it's this guy being scared of him, but he doesn't react to it. And then you've got him going to the park, and the narration in this scene is someone, we don't know who this is till later. It turns out to be the
Agent Bleep.
Yeah, Agent Blake from the... well, not Blake. Is it Blake?
Bleep. No, Bleep.
Bleep, yeah.
Yeah, that's her nickname that she hates now.
Yeah, because it's... the name comes up later.
She was the super... Yeah.
I know who she is. I'm just saying that I don't remember this name. I remember her actual name. Well, I don't, but in my head, I'm seeing like a proper name.
Got you.
Anyway, so she's the one narrating during this park bit, and it's clear that they're surveying Cobblepot. They're watching his move, and she sends in an undercover cop to try and rail him up, and it's this big muscly guy, right? Who comes in and just starts yelling F-bombs at him and calling him a fat boy and things like that. And the whole idea is that they're trying to see if he'll snap, and she says that this guy's scared and that they told him to wear a diaper because he might piss himself. And at the end of the scene, she mentions that he's pissed himself, and they're just lucky that Cobblepot didn't notice. But they're basically testing if Cobblepot will stick to his cover story, which is that he's a nice old man feeding the pigeons, and he's not going to snap. But he thinks, she genuinely thinks though that if this doesn't work and he does snap, this cop that she's set in is probably going to die. Like that's the attitude she has in this narration. It's very.
He's gonna rip his throat out with his bare hands.
It's really building up this character. But then after this, we get this complete shift to Penguin going home to his new wife, who is treating him like he's a little king. They end up in bed together. They're being really sweet with each other. It's and the coloring here is great because all the stuff in the park was all this muted yellows and autumn colors. All this stuff, once they're in bed, it's all these strong pinks, it's all the romantic colors,
I do love that he, because they got a little bit into it that he burned dinner, right? Because they're sorry that he was trying to take care of really making dinner nice, so he waited for her to come home, so he didn't. And then they just get into it in bed, and he's like, oh, dinner's ruined anyways, And it was just these nice little character moments with Oswald.
Yeah, and then it's the scene where the guy who comes in asking for the flowers for his wife.
Yep, the forest.
The Cobblepot's bird bites him and he gets really upset about it. And that's when eventually Espinosa, that's her name, Agent Espinosa comes in. And she's got a scar where her eye is because, and they reference this later, but Riddler shot her in the eye in a Killing Time. So this is a character that King set up and I think created. I don't think she was from anything before that book.
Yep.
And she's here to bring in Cobblepot. And Amanda Waller's ends up being there. So they're behind the glass in the interrogation place, right? So Cobblepot can't see them. And this comes from this is Waller's narration, where she's basically saying how impressed she is that this agent brought in Cobblepot, but she dare not show it. She doesn't want to show that she's impressed because that'll weaken her demeanor and the respect she commands from her agents. And she actually kind of, the agent provokes her a little bit. Agent Bleak provokes her by saying, "What? Not even a good job," or something like that. And she's like, "I'll be impressed if you bring in Batman." But until then,
Yeah.
nothing. So they do this thing where they keep Cobblepot locked up, and Espinosa goes in every day to give him food, take away his bucket that he's been shitting into. Everyone else is too scared to go in, but she keeps going in. And then eventually she goes in and basically pitches him that he's going to go back to Gotham, but he's working for them, and he's going to take back his empire, but for them. So I don't know if this is like technically saying that this is all under Amanda Waller, so this is kind of almost Suicide Squad-esque, but not exactly. But she recruits him, she provokes him by smoking in front of him, because he's been like basically going cold turkey.
Yeah, he tells his wife that he quit, and he's better off for it and stuff. And that's kind of a tell too that it's his old life is coming back to haunt him, right?
Yeah, I think what the book's doing is it's playing with this idea if he wants his old life back or not. We don't really know, but it does feel like he happily takes it when he's like offered it. Here at the end,
doesn't she threaten, right? That he's like, I'll come after your wife, if you don't do this. Right?
She does, yeah.
So
the agent says that,
yeah. So he begrudgingly is like, I guess I have to do this because I want to protect the one person that I care about, But yeah, which leads to the ending, which totally shocked me.
Well, before we even get to the ending, though, he doesn't say anything. He just like stands up and leaves the room because she says you're free to go at any time, but now you work for me. And like she has this moment after he leaves where like she knows that eventually he's probably going to try and kill her and will probably succeed, but she's like, for right now the Penguin is mine. And there's this full page spread of her basically shouting F yeah as she's thinking the Penguin is mine. Like she's like reeled in this bird, she's caged the bird, damn it, and she's so excited about it. And the Penguin goes back to the tailor from the start of the book. He did say one line. He said he had to go and pick up his suit. He did say that. But he goes to the tailor and beats the shit out of him with his umbrella. And then there's one last little bit at the end where we see them drowning in the bat plane again. But it is kind of an interesting thing. Like, if we read this final scene with Penguin, is he acting out of anger because he feels like he's been emasculated by this entire like thing that's just happened to him, so he's like going back to feel strong by like murdering this guy? Or is this him like basically saying, if I am that guy again, I'm going to go back and react like I would have done before?
So I read it as this is him having rage that his old ways, no matter what he tried to do, his old ways are so how am I going to put this? Is he can't escape. He can run, but he can't escape his old life. And this is his old life coming back. And so this is, to me, I read this as an act of rage that he embraces because, he's going to have to go do this to save his new wife. And he's upset about that. But I also think he's definitely going to plot against everybody. And I feel that what leads to the bat plane being shot down in Gotham Harbor.
I am not convinced he's upset that he has to go back to this life. I'm not saying that I definitely think he wants it necessarily, but I think I read this scene more the first way I said, which is he's doing this because he has to get out his rage on someone, and this is the last person. Well, it's not the last person, but it's the easy person to go and retaliate against. I think he feels so angry about now being controlled by someone else, and that he feels like he has to do something for someone else, that he has to go and like be, because I mean Penguin's whole thing in a lot of ways is that because he was mocked for his limp and his looks and called the Penguin, that basically motivated him to be extra angry, extra vicious, and take control the way that he did of the underworld, right? So this idea that someone is now suicide squadding him and saying you have to work for me now and you've got no choice in the matter, that must make him feel so powerless. And if there's one thing we know the Penguin doesn't like, is feeling powerless. So
it's true.
The question for me is that once he gets back into this, is this a story about someone who really actually was happy that he was out of this life, or is this a story of someone who is actually going to realize he loves being back in it? I actually don't know at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be part of the fun of it, is it's going to keep us guessing. But it already feels like one of those Tom King prestige, you know, just with how much that it set us up and how much into the headspace we're not in to him, because we're usually pretty good in a Tom King book of knowing what the characters are thinking, and the sheer fact that he chose in this issue at least to give us everybody else's point of view about Oswald, and not Oswald himself. Like, is that going to be I don't want to say gimmick, but is that going to be the hook of the book? Is we're just going to watch him go through the stuff and not know exactly what his intentions are?
I think that this is the storytelling mechanic of the book, and we're either never going to hear Penguin's thoughts, or if we do, it'll be a special thing when we get to the last issue. Maybe he'll finally do it in the final part, but I don't think it'll be something that he does willy-nilly in issue 2 or 3. I think we'll hold it off until a big moment before we finally hear what he's thinking, if ever. We might never do it, because what this succeeds in doing is building him up as this force to be reckoned with. And the last thing Batman thinks as he's possibly dying with Penguin is, how the hell does he do this? Like, he's underestimated Penguin. He's not aware of just how successful he was at being this criminal boss in the underworld, and how much like stuff he was getting away with in Gotham, that, you know, Batman was capturing everyone else, and arguably everyone else Batman was capturing was more of a concern, really, because Penguin wasn't necessarily, you know, like, he murdered people, but he wasn't a serial killer. You know, he murdered people in the organized crime way, occasionally when it called for it, but you know.
I always thought that he was the blending of Batman, of where, you know, Batman's not afraid to go bust heads, right? But he also has to be the rich guy. And I always felt like Penguin was the mirror of Batman, of that. Was like, you know, he was always the gentleman killer, right? You know, he wasn't like Joker that was just instilling fear across the way. So the way that King does this, where like everyone still has a little bit of fear of the Penguin, because he can, you know, not snap at any moment, but he's going to do things that's going to end up in your demise. I like that whole vibe. It really makes the character pop differently than just the, you know, the mob boss that throws his money around.
I mean, definitely like a mob boss in this. It definitely felt like a mob boss who's in like witness protection or something like that. And
right, but not the mob boss way where he just has the money. It's the mob boss that he you know, stabbed and shot his way all the way to the top.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely there. But I would also disagree slightly. You said that it's not like he can just snap at any point. I think it is that he can snap at any point.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing with Cobblepot's character is that he hated being made fun of so much when he was younger that if you slight him at all, he will try and kill you.
It's the pettiness that drives him. Yeah,
I'd say less gentleman killer and more like, if anything, it's the opposite. It's petulant child killer. Yeah. In a way.
Well, because I just always thought of it as, you know, like the idea of the Penguin is that he was ice cold, right? And he always kind of resembled a bird, right? But he was able to keep his composure for the most part.
If anything, if I was going to call anyone a gentleman killer, it'd be that guy from Killing Time. That was going around.
That was my next question. Are we going to see the Help pop up? That's kind of his Dark Alfred, because now he's going to get back into this. And if you need someone to help you get back control of Gotham City, who better than the Help?
I don't know. That's the honest answer to that, is I do not know. The art in here is very good, by the way.
Yeah, it's Rafael de Latorre, and it says here that he's done Daredevil. So it fits that vibe, right? It's got this grittiness to it.
I didn't recognize the name, but I think I might have seen some of his Daredevil stuff now you said that. But it's very moody, of course. The color schemes are, like, each scene's got a distinct color scheme, which is very, very good, because it really has a good vibe to it. It has this idea that this world that Penguin's in Metropolis is this sunnier, happier place. And then as soon as you get to like the interrogation room, it's this cold, clinical, you know, all these things. You know, it stops being warm colors, because, you know, Yeah, you had the romantic colors in the one bedroom scene, but for the most part, it was oranges and yellows and stuff. And then pink's still a warm color. Once you get to the interrogation room, it's like, oh no, now everything's very, very muted. It's cold.
And it's stark.
And
right?
it gets colder as the scene goes on. Like, there's still a little bit of yellow and stuff in that first page. But then by the time Agent Espinosa comes in and sits down, it starts to just drain, and it's just more, it looks more like slightly green and white more than anything else. And it's just completely, it's like Mr. Freeze has blasted the comic with a bit of a freeze gun by the time we get to the end of the scene. And I think that's to like go along with the mood, and that's really good. And honestly, the page after that where Penguin's like murdering the tailor with his umbrella, that's probably the only time in the entire book where I feel like it breaks its formatting by going stylish. Because everything else up until that point, it's all very neat, clean boxes. In fact, that interrogation scene's a lot of 9-panel grids. Everything's very neat. Everything's very structured. And then you get to that panel, and it's the only one that's not in a box. It's this red streak of blood that's going back behind the panels. Like it really sticks out and emphasizes the violence because it's different from every other page in the book. So very good.
And you definitely read the rule of thumb thing at the end there, right? Where he was beating him with the umbrella, but the umbrella wasn't, or the stick, whatever, or the cane. He was his cane, right? But it wasn't wider than Penguin's thumb.
Well, it's an umbrella he's using to the end.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then it's the handle, right?
Yeah. I mean, that said though, I'm pretty sure this guy's dead. So I mean,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I just feel like that was the rule of thumb coming back into play.
Because I feel like the rule of thumb thing, I assumed anyway, was to not leave any marks that were big enough.
Right.
But I've got a funny feeling this guy is going to look pretty rough when the police find him.
For sure.
just a feeling. So yeah, he's definitely dead. He's got blood coming from his head at the end in the last page. So no, I am very curious about where this goes and what they do with Penguin over the course of it. I don't remember how many issues this is supposed to have. In fact, it might even be technically an ongoing.
Yeah, there's no out of on the page because I looked at it on the cover.
That's fascinating.
There's none. Yep.
Hey, maybe that means that King's got like a 25 issue story planned for this or something. It could mean
and
that.
That's cool. That could be a lot of fun too. Because that means we're going to get to take our time with it. And we don't have to rush that year, right?
Oh, yeah. And I really liked as well the pacing of this issue. I think the fact that all these scenes got to breathe and I got to really get engrossed in all of them. I hope it keeps up that pacing. I'm down for it. So, very nice. What you rating the Penguin, Matt?
I'm going to give this a solid 8.
I gotta go 9. I think I was super into it. The art's really nice. The narration always being from someone else's perspective in the scene, never Penguin himself, I thought was super effective. Probably more effective, I think, than the time mechanic of Killing Time. So, and to be honest, I like Killing Time, but I do think the whole flashback thing that was doing with the ancient stuff was, in hindsight, my least favorite thing about that whole book. I'm glad this didn't have that in it. It didn't have that weird subplot thing that it was putting in.
Yeah.
I suppose you could argue the book ends with the present day stuff is kind of what that's going to be here, but that feels more conventional to me. It doesn't feel...
Yeah. No. That was definitely King taking a risk in that one, right?
Yeah.
To kind of try to point the story of whatever the I was, right? So here it's a little bit different. This is definitely Oswald's story completely.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, very good. Next up, we got... Hawkgirl issue 2, Jadzia, Axelrod, and Amancay and Nahuelpan on the art. So we read issue 1, and we didn't love it, but there was some things I liked about it. I do think this issue 2 is a little bit messier. And how it's particularly because I really liked how it set up the villain in the first issue, and I feel like this one, the villain stuff early on felt a little bit more haphazard to me.
Yeah. Also, the name of the villain. We didn't get the villain's name in the first one, right?
Well, if we did, I didn't remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, but what is it? Vulpicula?
I was wondering if it was maybe Vulpicula, maybe it's like a chest sound with the C. I don't know.
Maybe, but all I can think of is like a bad Dracula kind of name. And just like I really like the Galaxy character, right? Which should be because this is Axelrod's character from that young adult graphic novel. and I really like what's going on with Hawkgirl itself. But man, this villain story and the Nth World and all of that, it's really not doing much for me.
Yeah. So yeah, we learn a little bit more about
Galaxy.
About Galaxy, and her girlfriend. Kendra's
class.
What?
Yeah. Well, so when they go off, the girlfriend has to go to class and is worried about Galaxy and stuff, and Galaxy's don't worry about me.
You said class. I didn't hear what you said. I just heard
class.
A random sound coming out of me.
I said class, right? And so it's like, oh, I'm good at torts and stuff, and So again, the characterization on
what is a tort? Yeah. Someone explain to me.
So tort, it's in law, right? It's one of those type of lawsuits. It's kind of like a class action. Right.
Okay.
So there's tort law, and here in the States, there's been this right-wing push to dial back tort reform, because tort reform put a lot of businesses, if they do something shady, you can sue them for it, and it makes it easy. And so here in her law class, that's apparently she's good at that, which I think will come into play later when it comes to unraveling shady stuff. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, there's just a lot of fun little characterization stuff like that, interaction between the characters that I think Axelrod's really good at. Some of maybe the bigger stuff that we'll get into, maybe not. But yeah, as you're saying with Kendra.
Yeah, Kendra's like, we see her, it's like those ghosts of all her past lives, like standing around her, and it's like she's having a conversation with them. But she's having some trouble with her wings. Galaxy kind of steps in and uses her powers to make it work. Meanwhile, the villain, Valpicula, or whatever.
There you go.
I want to say it's like spatula, but with a V. It's like Vatula.
Well, I'm thinking because like the Latin form for a fox is vulpine, right?
Okay.
So I wonder if it is Vulpecula. So it's like a match of vulpine and Dracula, like whatever that suffix is, but yeah.
She's basically making monsters using nth metal, and she wants to make a lot more, and because it'll open a doorway to the nth world or something like that. So that's made me think of Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, because it was like she has her own Tokar and Razor.
Yeah.
Or sorry, not Razor, Razor. Sorry.
Yeah.
I have to say it
Tokar and
correctly.
Razor. Except this one's a race car and a wolf dog.
Yes.
And
they're quite monstrous.
Instead of a snapping turtle.
But she's got her henchman, and Galaxy's helping Kendra with her wing issue by using her powers to like fill in the gap between her wings and her body or something like that.
Which I thought was really, really interesting, that she's seeming like the nth metal's not actually bonded with her. So now she fixed that because she can manipulate these energies and whatever. So I thought that was really an interesting thing for her, because Kendra's had these wings for it seems like an eternity. But yeah.
So Kendra's all happy about that, and basically Galaxy invites Kendra to go out for a drink, because Kendra owes her for helping her, which she does. It turns out to be a gay bar, which she wasn't expecting. And her friend ends up being there, Abeline, who I'm not familiar with this character, I don't think.
I don't remember. She was the one that she was meeting. They hadn't seen each other since school in the beginning of the book, in the beginning of the first issue.
Okay, sure.
So this is her. She's shocked to see her there.
Yeah, is there anything from before that? I can't remember.
No, I don't think so. Okay. I just think it's the friend from high school that you haven't seen in a while. It's like, what are you doing here?
Also, Galaxy has a talking dog.
Who's her bodyguard that took the form of a corgi, which I'm here for this dog. Like I will lay down for this corgi warrior.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So it does seem like maybe they're building up to something with Kendra and this old friend. Maybe this whole idea of running into each other at a gay bar, even though Kendra didn't know she was in a gay bar, might lead to some sort of new type of relationship for Kendra. So be curious to see if they do something with that. The big thing is that the villain is looking for nth metal, and her trained attack dog wolf monster thing is smelling it out, and it leads them to the bar. And it's right after Kendra's been able to sort of like forget all the past lives. This is actually like the art is good. It's not great, I would say, but I do like this page though, because it's this really nice idea of she's dancing and the ghosts of their past lives are around her, but they kind of fade away into bright light as you go down the page, because it's like she's basically losing herself and she's not thinking about it.
She's in the moment. She's not. She's not having the arguments with her past selves.
But then the villain shows up with her two monsters. They smash through the skylight, and the whole thing is, bit of a fight. Kendra gets her Hawkgirl gear on, and the villain pisses off after she's basically snaps off one bit of her wing. She gets like one little bit of it, and that's enough for now. The cliffhanger did ring a bit weird to me, and maybe it's just because I didn't remember this character from last issue. But it the cliffhanger is that her friend picks up the mask which has fallen off during the fight, and she looks over to Kendra and says, "Who are you?" So it's doing the someone finds out the secret identity cliffhanger, right? Which is fine, but I felt like we hadn't built this character up enough yet for this to be a big deal. I don't know, I just kind of feel like, I don't know. I'll be honest, I didn't realize she didn't know until this panel.
Yeah, it's that and the villain's motivation stuff that really bogged this down for me, because I like all the character stuff with Kendra and her losing herself on the dance floor, because she's finally almost at peace with who she is, right? After Galaxy kind of fuses her wings to her, it's like she's whole now, right? And so now she doesn't have to have this inner monologue with all her past lives. She gets to be Kendra for the first time in a while. And I like all of that. And I like the stuff with Galaxy and her bodyguard, Corgi, and girlfriend, and, living in Metropolis, but, trying to just make it work and whatever. And then it just gets weighed down by some of this more superhero-y stuff, I guess. There's a weird balance there. And also, Axelrod's style you could tell they come from novels, because there's a very, very heavy prose style in some of the not narration boxes, but storytelling boxes, I guess, in there. It feels that they're just cut out of a novel, which is fine. It doesn't really, but sometimes it really stands out against some of the more comic booky. It gets in the way of the flow sometimes at the page. But I think that's just his learning pains, right? Learning to write comics instead of novels. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting book, in that it is taking its time with the characters, at least the parts of it that I like. And I don't necessarily know if I want more of this villain. More is less when it comes to Vulpecula. So we'll see. And just the whole Nth World thing, it's just I'm getting that's Nightmare Stone material. I don't need an Nth World. So hopefully this is just something silly. It's some parallel, whatever. But yeah. Also, the story in the front with the dog. Are we meant to be that the fox ate the dog after the dog dropped the meat in the river? Because it just says that the fox is hungry, right? I
feel like I get what you're talking about, but I feel like you've just burst into that with no context for anyone listening to this.
Yeah. So if you haven't read, I'll set it up. At the beginning, so what Vulpecula has been doing, right, in the narration is telling these almost Aesop's fables that deal with foxes. And in this one is this dog is on his way home, but he has to cross a river, and he looks into the river and sees a dog also holding meat, right, and starts staring off, and basically doesn't realize that it's his reflection. And then this fox comes up and basically lets him know, oh, you're gonna let that dog have a bigger piece of meat than you have, right? Kind of stoking this type of stuff. And then it says, but at the end, all the fox knew is that it was hungry. So, and the dog, didn't have the meat anymore. So are we to take that the fox ate the dog, or that the fox ate the wet food? I'm not sure.
I think it was fox ate the dog. The idea was it tricked the dog into basically drowning and then reap the rewards effectively.
Okay, gotcha. Which still doesn't get how it plays in with the book where it's she's turning people into race car monsters. But sure, I'm sure it'll all come around by issue 6. If we're still reading it by then.
Yeah, and this was kind of a mixed bag of an issue. It's just maybe might not be high priority once more books launch, but. I appreciate that it's got an identity at least, but I did think this issue was definitely messier than the first one.
Yeah,
for sure. What are you giving it, 10?
I'll give it a 6.5.
Yeah, I was thinking about 6.5. I think that feels right to me. So there you go. Next up, we have Unstoppable Doom Patrol issue 5. Dennis Culver writing with Chris Burnham on the art. So obviously we've been digging this book a lot, and this issue, actually, one of the things we've been saying about this 7-issue miniseries is that it feels like a lot of standalone stories as opposed to an arc, and it still feels that way. But this issue does kind of make it feel like there is a bit of a plan in place, because this involves them investigating a company that's responsible for that new character from issue 1's powers. And it also references the fact that, you remember, we had that infiltrator,
the slug guy,
right? In issue 2, who ended up dying at the end of the issue. Like that was someone trying to steal stuff for the purpose of this company. So there is actually a lot of connective tissue that's sort of been seeded. So you've got Robot Man and Elasta Woman jumping down to fight people in this town, and then Negative Man and Beast Girl are up in the chopper, and underground you've got the Chief, meaning the Crazy Jane persona, and Niles. And the new guy, what's this guy's name again? I keep forgetting. New one.
I forget. Let me click on it, because the you keep talking and I'll let you know when.
Smasher Man. I don't know what
you're talking about Degenerate.
Degenerate, that's it. Yes.
I thought you were talking about the slug guy.
No. I was talking about Degenerate. Yeah. So they're underground, sneaking in whilst the other team members are distracting everyone up top, and it's like, okay, the telepath one in the tank has given them this location. Mento, thank you. And when they open the door underground, they're greeted by who I can only describe as Joel McHale and a bunch of soldiers. And he's this, sleazy businessman who's doing experiments with genes and genetics and meta-genes. And, they're making these meta-humans. There is a quick scene, though, with Mala and this ruler from the other country, and them getting ready. They want to destroy the Doom Patrol. That's obviously something else that's building up. It's not. This is just a little tease in this issue. It's going to come up later, but I just wanted to acknowledge that it's there. But basically, this business guy, he wants to hire Niles because he likes all of Niles' extreme ideas, and brings up how, you basically created the Doom Patrol by causing all their accidents. We want to do that to the entire world. We want to challenge the whole world with tragedy and see what greatness comes from it. And Niles is like, look, I was young and stupid. I made a lot of mistakes. This is a terrible idea. Don't take those lessons from what I did. And up top, this was all a trap, obviously. All the people in the town turn out to be robots, so they're all fighting Rita and Cliff, and they're having a hard time. Negative Man sends the negative spirit down, and Beast Girl's left to fly the helicopter on her own, and she doesn't know how, which is all just very fun. I love the art here, by the way. Burnham's art, especially on Beast Girl, every time she looks scared or surprised, it just looks glorious. He's very good at the expressiveness with her. It's the big cartoon eyes just really works. So all this is going on, and they explain that they have built their first superhero, Meta Woman, right? Someone who's been built with their unique genetic experiments, and they send her up to deal with Cliff and Rita, and it goes well for Meta Woman at first. She's got her cape on, she fights, she knocks down Rita, she knocks down Cliff. But then it turns out that she's got a bit of an Amazo thing going, where she kind of absorbs the powers of whoever she's fighting, and that's how she's superior, because she can fight anyone. But they've not really made her prepared to handle these powers. So when she takes Rita's powers, she basically just starts to transform into a giant blob monster of flesh, and it's disgusting and funny, and I loved it. Yep, which it did remind me of the Rita subplot in the first season of Doom Patrol, the TV show, right? Yeah. Oh, this is way bigger than that, though. Yeah. Where she couldn't take the form, but this is on a massive scale, and I was like, oh boy, this is definitely a Doom Patrol story, right? Negative Man goes back up to the chopper, and it's too late to do anything about it. So there's actually a panel of it clearly flying straight into this big blob of flesh. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh dear. The chief is able to get was degenerate and sorry, I said the chief. Niles is able to get the chief and degenerate back up because they've been shackled by the bad guy, and he's able to like break them free. Turns out the bad guy's not really there. He's got like a robot here as an avatar, which makes sense. And the team up top are all running from this big flesh monster that's expanding and consuming the town. Although Peacemaker and Amanda Waller's big mech robots are actually shown up and they're trying to deal with it now instead. So the Doom Patrol are just escaping. They're just evading. I love the visual of Negative Man's spirit carrying his body at the end. I think that's quite a cool thing. So yeah, they've been teasing this company and what they're up to like throughout the book. So now they're kind of like out there as more direct villains, and they're also building up the Emperor dude with Mala and the other country because he wants to kill the Doom Patrol. There's actually, it feels like now after this issue, suddenly there's like these two like converging plots that are building up that are probably going to be a big part of the finale. So yeah. I really like this issue. I think this is. I probably enjoyed this a bit more than the last couple, and I've enjoyed all the issues, but I think this was a really good, solid progression story issue.
So I wasn't here for the last one, right? I was off on that episode, and that whole story where you got to basically go into therapy with each of the characters, I thought was really.
I don't think that was the last time. I think that was 2 issues ago.
Was that 2 issues ago? What was the last one then?
Oh God, you're asking.
Yeah, I'll click on it and find out, because I thought I wasn't here for that one. But I really liked it, right? Where you get to see where each of these characters are. And we got Beast Girl's origin, right, in that one?
Yeah, sounds right.
So, but yeah, I like that one. All of these have been, that was that one. Because that's, you get the, what's that? Dr. Cinco, right? The fifth dimensional entities. I could have sworn that was several issues ago, but okay, that's fair enough. That was issue 4, bud. But yeah, so I like that one. This one I like the superhero-ness of this one. So like you were saying earlier, of that they feel kind of like standalones, right? This one is kind of like see the Doom Patrol in action, right? After we've got to be with the characters and all of that type of stuff. So yeah, I feel like Culver's doing a real good job at endearing them to us through this, and now we kind of know what the threat is beyond Mullah and Immortus. Because you also have, Waller and Peacemaker and laying in the weight too, right? So they're getting pressure from both sides. And it's Velvet is that slug creature. And I think it's curious that Velvet has seemed to get an in with Calder. So I wouldn't be surprised if that, is a piece of something going forward as well. So, but yeah, no, this is a lot of fun. A lot of fun action. The meta, I'm looking at it right now. The meta woman exploding into the big giant blob is such a funny visual to me, and I can't understand why. I don't know if it's because her fingers exploding look like a bunch of trees or whatever, but it's yeah,
that's a great page. But for me, it's the panel on the next page of the ship about to crash into it. I just love the idea of them crashing a ship into this blob of flesh.
Yes,
it's just such a Doom Patrol visual to look at.
Yep.
So we've set up this evil guy who's trying to build an even bigger, more corporate Doom Patrol. So that should be something. Meta Woman seems to have volunteered for this, so there's no sympathy for her. So that's fine. We can have fun with it. So yeah, it's a good time. That's been a very good miniseries. Every issue, I'm just sad that it's not ongoing, but hopefully it leads to more. What are you rating issue 5 at Unstoppable Doom Patrol?
I'm going to give this a solid 8.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Solid 8 out of 10. Very, very good. All right. The Vigil, issue 4, Ram-V and Dev Pramanik, which is a different artist than last time, notably. But so... the Vigil, the only problem I have with the Vigil is it was because it's a new property with all these new characters, it's tough to remember a lot of their names.
I don't remember their names, but I remember what they do, right?
Of course,
I know there's Fast Lady, there's Electric Guy.
That's Dodge, I think.
Yeah, there's Face Changer Man. There's not the chief, but the chief. These are how I refer to them all as I'm reading.
There's definitely like some alternate Doom Patrol vibes to the fact that they've got this really shady guy's in charge, and this issue reveals something about him by the end. So we get some backstory for Dodge, who was basically trained or put in a boxing ring by her father, who was disappointed he didn't have a son because then he'd have a real, fighter. And when the fighter she's fighting next time gives her shit and says she's daddy's little girl, this provokes her to punch back with her powers kicked in, and it seemingly has killed this opponent in the ring.
I like to think she vaporized his head, because the way that they're going on about this, there's nothing left.
Yeah. All we see, right, because they never say out loud what happened to the opponent.
No.
We just see two people mop up this ring of blood.
Yep.
They're just mopping the ring. That's all they're doing. But it's very much this recruitment thing where our main guy shows up, the doctor shows up and recruits her, and says that you can vibrate your molecules, kind of like the Flash. You can get out of here. But you can move so fast you can basically be in two places at once, and no one else will know the difference. But the main story of the book is they're going into this location, this base, by this evil group who work for a subsidiary of LexCorp, although now SuperCorp, as it's pointed out later.
A subsidiary of SuperCorp. Yeah. And I do like the shade this guy talks that Lex was this profound businessman that somehow lost to his main rival, and now the company's named after him. It's so funny to me.
He gave all this to Superman, so I'm petitioning to remove this subsidiary to just being mine, so it's not part of that anymore. But this is their lab where they're doing metahuman stuff and whatnot. But they've been the team, it turns out, have been lured here, and they go in and this screen turns on, and there's this photo from 1941 of scientists, and it says, "Who is this man?" with a circle around it, and the team are all like, "Wait a minute, that's you.
That's the doctor.
That's you, Doc. Like, how are you here?" And then like the four members of the team come up, and it says like roughly who each of them are, and that there's supposed to be a fifth. Who's the fifth one? And there's like, "Hey, you've not aged in like 80 years. Like, what the hell? What's going on? Like, who are you? And what is all this?" So that's the main thing that's going on. And then this big metahuman like jumps into the scene and starts fighting them. That's when we cut to the evil businessman's meeting with this like super villain who is going to be our arch nemesis seemingly. So he's taking control of that company, and our team members are all fighting this big guy who's got like powers and this like power suit on. And Dodge ends up being the one that fights him, and the doctor's like, you know what, Dodge, like, she can handle this, like, she can beat anyone. She's lulling him into a sense of security, and that's when we get the flashback of him recruiting her when she's in the jail cell, and she phases out and they leave. In the backstory, she twitches out, and she's able to do this like phase move here and completely just kicks this guy's ass. So
separates his arm from what it looks like too, right? You see the sketch as she goes through. Just dominates him. Whatever this dude is, he's almost like overpowered,
she sliced through his arm by like moving at super speed. It's quite gnarly. And the smart one, the kid looking one, is like basically figured out what the secret is, and he's kind of like, "Hey, you should tell them, Doc." Sure enough, the big reveal here is that this guy that attacked him, this metahuman, was someone that he created. And then it turns out he says, "I created all of you." And obviously when he says that, I'm thinking Doom Patrol, I'm thinking Niles Calder, putting them all into accidents and stuff like that. And it could mean that technically, but the way he phrases this is very specific and really interesting, where he says, and by made I mean
none of you existed.
I thought you up. It's like they all came from his imagination, which implies that he somehow made his imagination reality, and that's what created all of their lives. That's very interesting if that's the path we're going down here.
This is so Ram V too. Like, I'm upset that we didn't piece a little bit of this together. Not that there was a lot of clues, right? But this plays very much in with his idea of ideas and creation and persistence and legacy that we've gotten in Swamp Thing, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
So, and this goes in with here too, that none of them, and it also hits that kind of Morrison, like there's someone, whoever this main villain is, right, sitting behind this computer. To me, I read that like it's almost like that's him. That's almost Ram V as the writer, right?
I thought this was just the business guy from earlier.
Is this Hap?
I don't know. I thought it was. I could be wrong.
Well, maybe.
Because we know that the company he's taken over, this subsidiary of LexCorp, is what runs this place. So I just assumed this was him.
Oh, you're right. Because he's wearing the blue suit.
Yeah.
When you zoom in. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, anyways, I just like the idea of him staring at the computer screen like that. Was almost kind of like a Morrison-esque. Not that he put himself in, right? But it's almost a meta commentary.
Yeah. Look, don't get me wrong. The sentence, none of you existed until I thought you up, could absolutely just mean, oh, I created all of you as you currently are via accidents and experiments. But given that this is Ram V and the very specific wording, this does sound like, no. You all came from nothing into existence because he conjured you up. Right. So it does make me think that all these flashbacks we've been seeing are not real. Like they didn't actually exist in the world. This didn't happen in their past. This is just the backstory that he's given them, and this is what they remember, which gives a whole new context to all these flashbacks we've been getting. Yeah, with each issue. That's actually quite fascinating. That all these flashbacks are literally just flashbacks. They're not actual things that happened. They're just the memories that are there to establish what the backstory of these characters are. Right. So very curious to see how they react to this and what comes from it. Yeah,
and we know where he goes and he meditates too, right? That adds a whole new different level too, because it's like, is he actually going into some like meta plane of existence? Is this, just like you said, is this just him trying to take credit for their creation, or is this actual literal that he plucked them out of the realms of consciousness? But yeah. Not that I was like, I was bored with this. I was like, okay, this is kind of like Doom Patrol meets Checkmate. This issue added a whole new different layer onto everything.
It's the best issue since issue, because issue 1 I thought was a perfect issue. I think the issues since then have been good, and then this issue is another great issue. And just what it reveals and the way it kind of recontextualizes what might be going on here. And does present the idea of like, okay, well, this young woman that's like joined the team is the liaison. Presumably she's a real person, and if she's a real person, then what's her take on all this? And at which point, like, do they all want to rebel because they're created by him, and if they do come from his imagination, like, do they just exist now, even if he decides to, let's say he gets killed, do they all cease to exist, or do they exist now because they've been created? So now they just stay around. I don't know.
And we've only seen them interact with like Batman, right? In the pages of what was that in? Was that in Detective?
Well, also Babs. One of them goes to see Babs.
That's right. In Lazarus Planet stuff. So yeah, so they're at least tangible enough, right? That it wouldn't surprise me if like he did bring them into this world from whatever imagination, right? That now they are living independent beings. But yeah, very, very again, very Ram V twist in on this, right? Because once he said like, I thought like Calder, he'd assembled this team. This was a lost member that didn't work out, and now he's being weaponized by the sinister corporation forces.
Which I suppose that's an interesting detail, actually. This meta-human that attacks them, if he also created him, then like how did this one end up with villains? How did this one end up working for this bad guy? That's a curious question. That definitely implies that they are autonomous and can just go off and be themselves, whatever that means to them.
Oh, I just realized this is like a new generation of metal men. And he's just Doc Magnus.
I love it. So, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So, man, Randy's so good. Like, every time. He a little bit more of a twist. I finally, I think I said on the show, I got the Savage Shores finally, because my shop kept ordering it, and then someone would come in to buy it, and they would forget to set it aside for me. The guy that works there yelled at me that I haven't read it yet, because like, all you do is you talk about how much you like VMV, and I was like, listen, a lot of personal stuff has been going on. I don't have a lot of time for non-DC books. He's like, all right, fair enough, but when you do read it, let me know, because you're going to love it. And now this issue really has like kicked that into gear for me, that I need to read, you know, this creator-owned stuff and see how it compares. So, but yeah.
Now, as far as the art goes, the art's pretty solid here. It honestly, if you hadn't told me it was a different artist, I don't, unless I went back and directly compared them, I'm not sure I would notice there was an artist change. It does feel very similar and in line to me. But that's but that's from memory though. I have not went back and looked.
No, it does. The other artist, which I can't because I'm on the wrong page. The other artist, it's a little bit moodier and a little bit more heavy on the shadows and stuff. But however, this is a good compliment artist because it fits in with the vibe of what we've known for the Vigil. So, but yeah, I would have guessed because I opened it up. I was like, this isn't the same artist, but it didn't bother me either. So, yeah, very, very solid book.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. It completely changes the our entire thought process about it, and next issue should be very interesting when he has to elaborate on this. So, yeah, that is the Vigil issue. What are you rating it, Matt?
I'm giving this an 8.5.
Yeah, I think 8.5 sounds about right for me as well. So there you go. Which takes us to the final book of the week, which is Dark Knights of Steel, issue 12. Tom Taylor writing with Yasmine Putri on the art. So this finally wraps up this book, and much like Deceased did back in the day, this ends with the implication there might be a future story to tell in this world. We'll see if that happens. Well, you know, with all the delays this had, I don't know if it's been as successful as Deceased, but it does have a sort of kind of hopeful ending that hopes for more story as well. So we found out Amanda Waller is working with the White Martians, and she's got a plan to like deal with the fire that the good guys have got around the palace. Turns out the plan is to use Captain Cold to take away the fire.
And it's cold wand instead of a cold gun. That's pretty cool.
Makes a lot of sense. But it turns out the good guys have got a plan. They've formed a plan where they basically lure all the White Martians to a volcano, and then Black Lightning and some of the others use their powers to evoke an eruption, and they let the lava do the talking.
Well, not only that, but our heroes, who are one half Kryptonian, one full Kryptonian, and a goddess, get bathed in lava, which creates a makeshift armor so that the White Martians can't do much.
Yes, the Trinity become coated in fire, effectively.
Right. And so what I love about this is that it's an idea that apparently came from Bobo, right, Detective Chimp, and Constantine. But as they're talking about it, Bobo looks at Constantine and goes, I think it's crazy enough to work. And he goes, well, I hope so, because if it doesn't, I'll just say that I got it from the monkey. And I just thought that that's the typical Tom Taylor sense of humor that I've come to expect in these books. Because for the rest, up until it's revealed, I'm like, well, what's their plan? Like, what's so crazy that only, an ape can think of? And it turns out coating your heroes in lava to fight White Martians is the one part of the story, the one part that is crazy enough. My main problem with this, I think this is a really good issue. The delay killed me. I forgot where we were in the story. I think I forgot about Waller betraying them and being like on quote unquote humanity side.
I mean, that one's not too bad because it's really easy to get once you do like one look at the first page and you get it. But the delays in general have really hurt the pacing of this book because like it got to a point where I just forgot it was still going because it had been like 3 months since the last issue. I don't know, that was like between 7 and 8 or something like that, but this should have been finished like 6 months ago, or probably even more than that, to be honest. Yeah. And it really has hurt it. It has meant that the art's been a lot more consistent, which is good. Don't get me wrong. But it has made the single issue reading a little bit tough at times. Yeah. So of course, the reason why it seems like there's more planned is because Alfred, who's also Martian Manhunter in this world, basically figures out that Waller is behind a lot of shady stuff and knows what she's done. And Waller basically has fire defenses for Martians because she's not an idiot, mainly because she deals with white Martians. So she actually kills Alfred. And Batman flies for the first time with his Kryptonian powers as he hears the yell and flies off to get. So we actually see Alfred burn alive, and he turns to dust like a vampire from the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Alfred in this universe can't even catch a break. He's got to die here too.
So
that said, it was a really.
I just want to say once again, Taylor is making us try to like hurt with with Alfred's death. Like he's using that again.
Because what I wanted to say about that was, as they get ready to go out to battle, right? He says that I can't go with you, Master Bruce, right? And he goes, "Would you be bothered if I took the form of Alfred?" And Bruce is kind of like, "Well, that was already your form." And he goes, "Oh, 'cause it's the one that I'm most comfortable in now." And it's this really nice moment of like, this is who I've been for years, and I'm not thinking that Taylor's going to take him away from us again. Right, I'm thinking like, oh, he'll be, because he goes, I can't be with you because of whatever the plan is, and then that's when it, as they're going to rain fire down upon the Martians, it makes sense. But yeah, Waller has other ideas, and takes Alfred from us, and it's just this. Bruce says it in his head, he can hear the scream.
Yeah, and then Waller right after when Bruce shows up says, "Oh, Deadshot was working with the bad guys," and she kills Deadshot with a sword and says, "Yeah, Deadshot betrayed us. He did this. He did this." So now Waller's like, lying and kept her position with the court, and so this is one of these things that makes you feel like, oh, there's a sequel plan to this, because there's no way you don't have her get her comeuppance if you're not planning to do more, unless you're planning to do more story with her. So. That feels like a sequel setup to me, as does, of course, what they do at the end here, where they unite the kingdoms of the Amazons, the Lightnings, and the Elves. The Elves. And they call it the League. And that's the end of the book, is that they've effectively formed the Royal Justice League. So also, like, we get some Lois and Clark stuff where, she goes over and is like, she kind of playfully is like, aren't you ever going to tell people how you got out of Themyscira, right? So it also seeds a relationship for Lois and Clark, going forward. And the same with Bruce and Clark, right? Where he's like, well, this should be your throne, right? Like, you're the one that's half. He goes, the throne's not for me. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, it does seem to always do well in the top 10. So maybe this has sold well enough that it'll get a sequel.
Yeah, but there's a lot of fun stuff in here to lead that. Even if we never get a sequel, right? I could see Taylor revisiting it someday down the line in like a one shot or something.
Honestly, I'm expecting a sequel announcement in less than 6 months. That is what I expect. And
he's got to get through Beast World first, and then we'll hear about Dark Knights.
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed the series. I think this is a solid finale. I think it's had a lot of what Deceased had, which is the twists and reveals that kind of make sense in a weird sort of like, mishmash way. Yeah. But I do think it does feel like a lot like it is just a second Deceased in a lot of ways, by just, remixing what characters are with who and how they sort of come to be together and things like that. So it is still very enjoyable, but I do think that it is kind of the same trick as Deceased. So I would say that it is, it's the art's better by and large, but I would say that it is the lesser Deceased. Still good, but not as must read, I would say. Is where I'd land, I think.
Agreed. I'd agreed on that too. Because, but yeah, no, Putri's art though here, all the fantasy type stuff, the Trinity. On fire, such a cool visual.
Yeah. That said, given everything I did just say there, I will acknowledge though that it probably reads quite well in one continuous read. If you read this as just a 12-issue book, in a trade or whatever, I think it probably reads quite well and at a nice pace. I think the delays between issues really did hurt this across the last couple of years, because it feels like it started 2 years ago. That's how long it feels like it's been going.
Yeah, well, I'm sure too, if you're reading it at the right pace, right? When you start to get the vibes that that Kara's not, or not, it's not Kara, whatever this Clark's sister or Cal's sister.
Zala, I think.
Zala,
Something
there we
like
go. That Zala's not Zala. Like something's not adding up, and that Clark's not Clark, right? I'm sure those turns happen, and you start to be able to piece together the Martian aspect a little bit better because you don't have those big gaps in reading. But yeah, it's still very enjoyable. I still like a lot of the characterization.
I was not far off. The first issue came out in November 2021.
Shh.
It's almost 2 years.
Almost.
Just 2 more months and it'd have been exactly 2 years. So that's a lot of delays because this should have been done in 12 months. And okay, fair enough. You wanted the delay in the middle to give the artist, because they did that one shot to give Putri some time. But even with that, like, it should have been not much more than a year. So it took a long time to get through this.
Yes.
So, but I suspect there'll be a sequel before too long, because it feels like it was a lot of stuff at the end to set one up. Between the Clark and Lois tease, between Waller still being this villain sort of in the inside, out for herself, and then the formation of the League, it feels like it's just ripe for more. And they even reference like other parts of the world here as well.
Yeah.
I don't have it open anymore, but they talk about the frozen lands somewhere. Yeah. They talk about, I think it sounds like they're talking about Atlantis at one point.
The Sea Kingdom.
So it feels like there's some seeds there for future stories for sure.
If there's ever a need for a Momoa-esque Aquaman showing up, it's in a book like this. I'm just gonna put that out there.
There's never a need for a Momoa Aquaman.
I'm just saying, I kind of like Aquabro a little bit, just enough to have him in a comic.
No, I need to never be reminded of anything in those movies ever again. Thank you very much.
Oh man.
Screw Zack Snyder and screw his stupid Star Wars knockoff that's coming out in 2 months.
Oh god.
Which is now a 2-part movie, and I hate that I have to review both parts. Anyway.
I mean, you don't have to.
Yes, but I have dignity. I have to do it.
If you had dignity, you would be watching it, sir.
I have...
integrity.
I have integrity. I have a duty to the people to review such shit. Yeah, anyway.
You let me down with the 3 eyes there, bud. You could have had intelligence and intensity, but you didn't.
I'm not going to reference a 20-year-old Kurt Angle promo.
Why not? Kurt Angle's great.
Anyway, what are you rating Dark Knights of Steel?
I'm going to give this an 8.
Yeah, I think an 8's fair. Like, honestly, like, it's a very pleasant miniseries. It absolutely is. It just kind of feels stilted, and it feels like maybe it came too soon, because I think Deceased, because Deceased, the final like part of Deceased was still happening whilst this was. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the last part of Deceased didn't start until after this started, given that was 8 issues.
Yeah. I think we talked about that when we were wrapping up Deceased.
I think maybe some time between Deceased and this would have probably been good, because that would have felt like a spiritual successor instead of like being kind of at the same time, and kind of weird because of that. But anywho, there you go. So that'll take us on to the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, and favorite art, and top 5 books. So Matt, what was your panel / moment of the week?
Oh man, there's a couple. I really like some of the stuff in Detective. Those Penta priests are very, very creepy. I also like in Doom Patrol, the big lady coming out. World's Finest had that Superman stuff. But I'll go with the easy one from Dark Knights of Steel. The Trinity on fire as their armor. Such a cool visual. That one really stuck with me, so that's mine.
Yeah, there's good stuff to pick from a few books here. Penguin's got some, Doom Patrol, like you say. I am going to go with Night Terror's Detective Comics, believe it or not. I'm going to go with the explosion sending the Bat Monster back. I just think that page is gorgeous. It's just the art is so goddamn good that I have to give it the shout out. All right, cover of the week.
So what I've been looking at as we've been trying to talk, Penguin has a fun one where it looks like Harley's giving him a tattoo, right? But I don't know, that one's a little bit too zany. Is there any good Night Terror ones? I have mine if you want me to go.
Yeah, you go, because I'm still just looking.
So mine's I gotta look up the artist now. But mine's one of the variants for Doom Patrol. Oh, it's Janin. I just remembered. Janin has a Doom Patrol variant that's got Robot Man and Negative Man in the car. They just look super cool. It's very clean, very stylish. Looks like it could be the cover to the trade or whatever. But yeah, that one's mine.
There's a Marquez cover for Penguin, which is pretty
That's
solid.
a good one too.
Yeah, I think that Doom Patrol cover you brought up is very good. Yeah, admittedly, I'm only looking at this week's books, and technically last week's books kind of also count, but that's a lot of checking. So I think I'll just go with the regular Night Terrors Detective Comics cover, mainly just because it's Federici art, and I don't get to pick that often. So
it's good. It's got that. I think that's Babs on the side, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's Babs.
In profile.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks pretty nice.
That's good stuff. All right. Best art of the week.
All right. So, shouts to Federici. Federici's always great, but I was taken aback by the Penguins art and just how solid it was throughout. So that one's gonna be mine. But definitely shouts to Federici and Putri and even Burnham for Doom Patrol. So, yeah.
Yeah, those are all solid choices. Burnham was great. Putri was great. Moore on World's Finest was great.
Yep.
I am going Federici, which is probably not surprising given the two choices I already made, because it's all just based on Federici art. But that's what I'm picking. Top 5 books of, I say the week, but really it's
2 weeks
of the show, because we had 2 weeks worth. But on you go.
Yeah. All right, so number 1 is going to be Night Terrors Detective Comics. 2 will be Penguin. 3 would be Dark Knights of Steel. 4 would be Vigil, and 5 would be Doom Patrol.
Number 1 for me is Penguin. Number 2 for me is Detective Comics Night Terrors. Number 3 is Doom Patrol. Number 4 is Vigil. And number 5 is World's Finest. I think that sounds about right. Yeah, I think that's right. Dark Knights of Steel just missing the cut, but hey, we did a lot of books, so. But there you go. That's the show. Apologies for the patrons who are waiting up for this. This is a little going to be later than usual, so apologies.
Thank you. Many apologies, but thank you.
Yes. So apologies for skipping a week last week, but we're back. We're in top form, and we'll be back next week. In fact, this is where I tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. So coming out next week is a week 5, so it's a bit of a weird week, but we do have Superboy, The Man of Tomorrow, issue 5. We've got The Riddler, Year 1, issue 6. We have Night Terrors, Night's End, issue 1.
Thankfully.
We have the Batman Catwoman Gotham War Battle Lines issue 1. Do you know what? I hate that I'm going to read that.
That's a mouthful.
Because it's a week 5, I know I'm going to read that, and I'm annoyed about it. It's bad because most of the stuff I've read so far, read out, we're not doing Superboy or Riddler Year 1, so we have to. We got Action Comics presents Doomsday Special issue 1. I suppose we'll look at that.
Yeah, that's the Dan Waters one.
Yeah.
So
if anything, that's the one I'm most looking to look forward to now. Then we got Sandman Universe Night Country, The Glass House issue 4. We got Nort's Illustrated Swimsuit Edition issue 1, and Catwoman Uncovered issue 1. So it's a quiet, weird week 5, but there's 3 books there that we'll be covering probably, which is Night's End, the Batman Catwoman book, unfortunately, and the Action Comics special. So, weird week. I'll probably end up doing a Patreon book as well, I imagine.
And I'm going to catch up on that Raven book from last week.
Oh,
so
sure.
I'll throw that in next week, too, as a bonus for missing that one.
By all means. Yeah. All right, so that's what's coming. That is the show. Let us know what you thought of the books from this week and last week. In the comments or on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. And of course, if you want to support the show and keep it coming, you can help out by going to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and supporting us over there. But that is the show. I am very warm, and it's been a long recording, and it's a late recording as well. So thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.